and streaming worldwide at WCPT820.com. We are Chicago's progressive talk, where facts matter. Now, your WCPT 820 weather update.
From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki. Blend of clouds and sunshine develops this afternoon, high in the upper 70s. West winds around 5 to 10 miles per hour, gusting as high as 15. Then for tonight, a slight chance for some showers and thunderstorms here late. Mostly cloudy skies with a low near 61. By Thursday, a slight chance for showers and thunderstorms. Mostly cloudy skies, high 77 degrees. That's your latest Chicago weather update. Currently, it's 77.
This is WCPT 820. Listen in Chicago on 820 AM or stream us live on WCPT820.com, the TuneIn radio app, or tell Alexa or Google to play WCPT. Hey Google, play WCPT.
Streaming Chicago's progressive talk from TuneIn.
Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive. Filling in today for Joan, Chicago media personality, John St. Augustine.
Hey, glad to be with you on WCPT. As mentioned, I am in sitting for Joan. She will be back tomorrow, so we get to all her stuff in this spot tomorrow afternoon. But I'm so glad to be with you today. This was kind of a short notice gig for me. I was doing a couple other things, and I was able to move those out of the way because let's just get things straight. Any chance I get near Superdog, which is not far from this radio station, I'll probably drive up here and have a hot dog, and then I'll do radio. So it's kind of a good trade-off for me, but that's show prep, right? If I get a hot dog with the green tomato on there and the whole deal, I'm good to go. Listen, we got a full house here today. I'm with Lady B. She's behind the glass as always. Always good to work with her. But just a quick rundown of what's going to be happening between now and 5 o'clock this afternoon before Patty Vasquez comes in and takes it home. Dawn Kristy is going to be joining me in about 25 minutes or so. She is an artificial intelligence expert, and I've had conversations with her over the past year on a bunch of different things. I've been working on projects and like that. And I have some great and grave concerns about artificial intelligence. I think the first thing is that apparently human intelligence has eroded to the point that we need to create artificial intelligence to make up because we're stupid. So we'll see about that. Peter Tiernan is going to be joining me as well. He's got a brand new book out called Once in Chicago. And when I read his book, it's a novel. I think he's got 4 or 5 novels. But when I read Peter's book, I thought, oh, my God, it's my life when I was 19 years old here in the city. So we'll be talking with Peter at some point a little later. Dan Mason is going to be checking in. Dan was the former president and CEO of CBS Radio for 20 years. This is a heavyweight in our business. He's still very active, doing a lot of great things. He's in the Radio Broadcasters Hall of Fame. But we're going to be talking a little about this whole thing with Cracker Barrel, which I find utterly fascinating from about 40 different points of view. And he had an interesting take on the whole thing, which I'm not going to let out of the bag, right? You got to sit around and find out what that's all about. Dan will be joining me a little later. And in all full disclosure, I've had a rough 4 months. I've lost 4 really close people to me in 4 months, all men, all deep friends of mine, one of them related to me, and it's been a you-know-what show for quite a while. And one of the shows that I produce when I'm not doing these type of things is a show called The Kindred and Brave Project, and that is hosted by Mandy Jankus, who is a grief expert. And I've learned from Mandy about her take on the fact that we are a grief illiterate society. We don't know how to grieve. We're not taught how to do this. Listen, just what happened in Minneapolis is going to be unbearable for the families involved in this, and grief is going to be with them the rest of their lives. And so all of us go through these things, no matter who we are, where we're at, how you vote, what you look like. It doesn't matter. When you lose somebody that's important to you, whether they're young or old or in the middle, whether you're related to them directly or it's a friend, there is a level of grief there. So I'm asking her to be on to help me out because I'm having a bit of a time. We'll talk about that with Mandy, and a little bit later on in the show, I got some things to discuss around that as well. And in a total 180, maybe even a 190 view of things, my pal, country music icon and legend, John Barry, is coming up to Arlington Heights to perform on September 12th at a little club called Hey Nonny. And JB rarely comes up this far past the Mason-Dixon line. It's so interesting to me to watch this guy's career. He's been doing it 29, 30 years. Big hits in the 90s. We're going to play just a little snippet of that later to intro him. But this is a guy who packs him in at the Grand Ole Opry, and the week later, he's in Arlington Heights. And this is something you don't want to miss. He's got incredible talent. But the most important thing with John, to me, is the journey he's been on. He's overcome brain cancer, throat cancer, you name it, he's done it. They didn't think he'd ever sing again. And when you hear his voice, it's remarkable and unmistakable. And I don't think I could get in here and do any shows on WCPT if I didn't pull Jennifer Weigel in. We're kind of like the Heckle and Jekyll, apparently, of radio. We've worked together for so long, doing so many different projects on the air, off the air, speaking things. And she has an event coming up in November called the All Souls Weekend. And 5 years after I did it the first time, she's asked me to come back and speak again in November. We're going to talk about that and how you can get involved as well. So as you can tell, it's going to be a full packed house. But before I get to any of that, more full disclosure, kids, more full disclosure. 28 years ago today, this very day, August 27th, 1997. Yeah, it started with a 1 and a 9. 1997 was the first time I ever sat behind a radio microphone live. First time. And I found it really interesting in a kind of karmic way to come back around that while a lot of the work I do now is in a podcast space with clients and my own stuff and a bunch of other things and write books for people and all that other stuff that I do, it's just really good to be here today, 28 years later. It's mind-boggling to me. When I got the message from Andy, he's like, can you come in tomorrow? Like, you mean tomorrow, like the 27th, like 28 years to the day when I started this gig? And I never thought I'd be sticking around with all this. And the short version of all this, and if you've read any of my books or heard me do this stuff before, bear with me. But for those who haven't heard this, I was in a difficult time. I was living in a motel in Upper Michigan. The year before, in 1996, I walked from the Upper Peninsula to Chicago and back on foot. It was a road to Damascus experience. I was 37, in really good shape. And it's not something I ever planned on doing. It's just kind of the way the world worked out for me at that point. My wife and kids were living in a motel with me at that time, in a real tiny motel in the Upper Peninsula called the Hillcrest Motel on U.S. Highway 2 in the bustling metropolis of Rapid River. And on the way back, we got all the way down to Chicago, and on the way back, I was alone. And somewhere just outside of Oconomowoc, Wisconsin, I literally heard a voice in my head. The clouds parted, the bells started ringing, and this voice says, John, go on the radio. I had no prior experience in radio, didn't take journalism, didn't take broadcasting, nothing. It was the most ridiculous thing I'd ever heard. Guess what? 28 years later and thousands of shows, and I don't know how many stops, Oprah Radio, CBS, you name it, I've been everywhere doing all these different things. And I realized probably about halfway through that this really doesn't have a lot to do with me. This is not something I would, listen, anybody that's been in radio, if you're listening to this show, you know this is a difficult business. You're lucky if you make it a certain point in a certain way, and you can earn a living out of it, and I've been very fortunate that way. But I'm very clear that this is bigger than I am. My job, I knew right out of the gate, was to try and bring common sense to uncommon times. If there's a way to figure out how to make sense out of the senseless, then we should do that. And I sat down in the chair here, and the CNN page is open, and it's nothing but bad news and sad news. And it's always been that way. It will always be that way. And I think our job is to figure out how do we deal with that so it doesn't deal with us in ways that really negate us and negate the gift, really, of being alive. So that's what I've always been about. Every conversation I've had, even with politicians and people that I disagreed with, was always to find some common ground somewhere, because that's where things change. And I always wanted to do radio that brought people together and didn't push them apart. Well, that doesn't work well in this business, because the idea is to push people apart, put them in groups, and sell them stuff, and there's your audience. But I always felt if I could kind of bridge all that and do some of that stuff and talk with people on all sides of the fence, because there's more than one or two, folks. There's a lot of sides to the fence these days. And I was telling Lady B when I came in here, in my opinion, my observation, and my different experience, even though it's important to know what's going on in the White House, it's more important what's going on in your house. And figuring that stuff out is where you have control over. And the headlines you don't, but the lifelines you do. And so that's kind of the banner I've been flying for almost 30 years, which is, I can't believe I'm that old. But I've always done this, and I will continue to do this until I don't do this. And that's what I've been charged with. And so everybody I have conversation with today, this is part of that. How do we undo what's been done? How do we figure out a better way? How do we take care of ourselves and take care of the people around us, no matter how they vote? The least effective way, in my opinion, to describe a human being is your political party. There's more to you than that. Even though that stuff's really, really important, there's more than that. And that's why when I get in here, I do these shows with these folks to talk about other things, because you don't want to get sucked up in the headlines so far that you forget about being alive and living your lives and having to deal with stuff. So, for example, with Mandy Jankus and the grief thing, I've been working with her for 2 years. And when I lost these guys over the last few months, it really sucks. And so if you're listening to this show and you've lost somebody, whether it's 20 years ago or 20 months ago or 2 days ago, like I did, it applies. That's where all that other stuff gets pushed to the side, and we have to deal with the things that we want to deal with. I say this every time I get a chance, whether it's this show, my podcast, I'm a guest on shows, I go out speaking. I've never seen Democrat or Republican on a headstone, ever. If you can find it, send me a picture. And it's not AI generated, we'll talk. But in the end, as in the beginning, it doesn't matter. And so finding ways to push people together and find common solutions together and putting that stuff apart that divides us has always been what I'm supposed to do. And so I hope you will stick around, as you have for 28 years, apparently, listening. They still ask me to do this stuff. I'm fascinated by that sometimes. In the summertime, when I get a chance to get out of my studio and come in, I have to put shoes on, which I'm not real fond of that. If I can't wear shoes from like April through October, I'm good. But today I had to put shoes on because I'm in the studio, and just a little mini sacrifice. So that's all coming up here in just a few minutes. Tonight on Driving It Home with Patty, she'll be joined by co-host Dwayne Kennedy. And their guests are Colin Elred, the former congressman who is currently running for U.S. Senate in Texas against Republicans John Cornyn and Ken Paxton, and the car guy. I just like saying that, car guy. Tom Appel, host of the Consumer Guide Car Stuff podcast, will be on as well. Driving It Home with Patty Vasquez, weekdays, 5 to 7 p.m. Central, WCPT AM. The Heartland Signal website, tune in, and YouTube and Facebook. And we'll take a short time out, come back right after this.
Amy Goodman reports on the news stories rarely covered by the corporate media. Democracy Now!
The UN's Humanitarian Affairs Office warned Palestinian children are at high risk of injury or death from unexploded ordnance left after more than 13 months of Israeli attacks. 8-year-old Mohammed Karmash, this is his mother.
No one was there to tell him that these are explosives that the Israelis throw.
Democracy Now! Weekday evenings at 10 on WCPT 820, Chicago's Progressive Talk.
This is WCPT telling you how you can shop blue. If you have children, they are always going to be your special bundle of joy. And if they're a newborn baby, you want to make sure what's best for them. So here are the best baby product companies that support the Democratic Party. Procter & Gamble. Now, Procter & Gamble owns Love's, Pampers, and All Good. In 2024, Procter & Gamble gave $599,000 to the Democratic Party, 61% of their donations. Procter & Gamble supports the Democratic Party. Kirkland Diapers. Now, Kirkland Diapers are owned by First Quality. And First Quality does not give to politics, but their employees do, and their employees lean slightly to the left, as $50,000 are donated to Democrats in 2024. This has been WCPT telling you how you can shop blue.
WCPT 820, Chicago's Progressive Talk, where facts matter.
Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive. Filling in today for Joan, Chicago media personality, John St. Augustine.
Always good to be in for Joan. She does a great show. I am so proud to sit in this chair and share the microphone. The whole thing about being progressive has a great moment for me. My guy has been and always will be the 26th president of the United States. Ladies and gentlemen, Theodore Roosevelt. And he was so far ahead of his time. The things that he put in place back in the 1900s was a big deal. They still, in so many ways, play a role in our lives today, from the national park system to the trust busting with all the major corporations back in the day. And I think the thing that was so important to me when I was a kid reading about this guy was he said, it's about having a fair deal and a square deal for everybody. You got to figure out ways to level the playing field so everybody can climb up the ladder as they see fit, that you don't push people down, you help lift them up. And so he was a progressive back then. He was under the Republican Party banner. But if you study history at all, you know that these parties have switched back and forth all the time. The Republican Party of today is not Lincoln's party. It's just not the way it is. And the Democrat thing was the opposite. So these things have bounced back and forth over time. And I always found it so interesting. God rest President McKinley, who was assassinated, who actually survived being shot. And it was the doctors digging in the bullet holes that caused his death because it got infected. That because of that, Theodore Roosevelt became the 26th president. He was put in the benign VP slot. It was just kind of nothing there. And he'd go out and do talks and have dinners and shake hands. And he was coming off being the governor of New York. So they figured the best place for this troublemaking progressive would be to make him the vice president, would shut him up. And next thing you know, in short order, McKinley is murdered and assassinated. And TR becomes the president for 8, 9 years, whatever, 10 years. And the one thing he said he regretted is he didn't run for another term. He actually tried to come back and created his own party called the Bull Moose Party. That's where somebody took a shot at him in Milwaukee in October of 1909, I think it was. And it was only because he had his speech rolled up in his pocket that the bullet didn't kill him. And his shirt is on display at the Smithsonian. I hope the president considers leaving it in there if he's reviewing all this stuff. You might want to leave TR's shirt there because it's an inspiration, I think, to everybody that putting your life on a line is something that people do all the time. Listen, as a veteran myself, and I salute all my veterans who are listening, thanks very much for that. When you sign that paper and you say, I will give up my life for something bigger than me, which is our country, unless you've done that, you don't get that. I'm here to tell you. It's a great idea. There's a lot of paper patriots running around waving flags, beating their chest, walking backwards, and trying to put their teeth in at the same time. It doesn't work. It only works when you've signed that paper. And if you're a DD 214 alumni like I am, you get that. I just recently came back just 2 days ago from a funeral up in Antigo, Wisconsin, which is about 4.5 hours from Chicago. And a guy that I served with back in the day in the 80s, Senior Chief Dickman, passed away at the age of 81. And I'd been in conversation with Senior Chief over the last few years. It's amazing to me. I didn't see the guy for decades. The next thing you know, kind of life puts you back together with people, and you start having conversations again. And 3 years ago, we had a reunion for Coast Guard Air Station Chicago and surrounding areas. And I went up and invited the chief to come down, and the guy picked him up from Minneapolis. Shout out to John Metza, my behemoth brother from another mother. Picked him up and drove him down and brought him to the reunion, and he had a hell of a time. A year later, I went up and got him, brought him down. We had a bench dedication ceremony out where NAS Glenview used to be and where our air station hangar used to be. We have a bench out there. So if you golf at the golf course there, you'll see a dedication stone and a bench where Coast Guard Air Station Chicago used to be. Anyway, he was revered by our crew. Everybody and anybody that came through that air station knew who Chief Dickman was. And when he passed last week, it was not unexpected, but it was incredibly sad for me because you lose a piece of your history when that happens. So we went up to Antigo, Wisconsin. A couple guys met me there. So Chief Mike Hicks came down from Michigan, and Chief Gary Butler came up from Florida. That's a 22.5-hour ride to say goodbye to somebody you worked with 45, 50 years ago. And that's my point in all this. Unless you've been in the military and you understand what that's like and you have that camaraderie and you have those pieces put together, people are like, why are you driving 10 hours round trip for a funeral? I'm like, because you don't get it. And if you got it, you'd understand it. Now, I'm not saying people don't do that, but in this particular instance, it was so important for us to go up there and do that for him. And Chief Hicks presented his wife, his widow now, with the Coast Guard ensign flag and all that went around that. And you should have heard, which I found we weren't prepared for this, the accolades and the thanks for us just showing up at this guy's funeral. And, we just went paying respects for ourselves, and we turned into having these conversations with people that, they all knew our names before we got there. Let's put it that way. So those type of things when it comes to the military are really important to me. I don't have any big veterans news here. It's been pretty quiet over at the VA, but I will say that, my service to them has still continued. I go over to the VA. I got a checkup coming up in next month. And as hard as it is for me to admit this, my physician has retired after 10 years of seeing this guy. Dr. Gutierrez is retired. I won't see him anymore. And the reason it's difficult for me is because Dr. Gutierrez went to the rival high school that I went to, from where I went, which was Schurz. He went to Lane Tech. And Lane Tech and Schurz guys, we just don't get along. So every year I'd go in to see this guy. He'd be busting my you-know-whats constantly. And he was on the track team, and I was on the football team, and, we're very different animals in some respects. But it was so much fun to go see this guy because we had this rivalry going on, for almost a decade. So he is retiring at this point. So Doc Gutierrez, thanks so much for taking care of me. I have no idea who my next attending physician is. I just hope they're not from Lane Tech. That's all I'm asking there. Coming up in about 10 minutes, I'm going to have Kristy join me about this AI stuff. But before we get to that, I'm going to start priming the pump about Cracker Barrel. So back in the day when I worked at Oprah Radio, I lived in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, and I would drive back and forth every week. And that's a lot of driving. And one of my favorite stops was, hey, let's go to the Cracker Barrel. I'd stop there for breakfast or dinner or lunch, whatever my travels would allow. And I would sit on the rocking chairs out front, kind of waiting for my turn and walk inside. They got the whole thing as a setup anyway. You got to weave your way through the candy aisle just to sit down and have lunch and stuff. But I never once, in all those stops that I made over the years, and that's just, it's been doing it for a long time, did I ever care one iota about their logo? Don't care. Doesn't matter to me. As long as the roast beef stays the same, as long as I can get those dicey, spicy apples or that fried catfish, I don't care what you call the place. But apparently there are people that do. And when I pull back from all this, and we've all heard this, I'm not going to try and beat it in the ground too much, but there are some things I think that maybe we can take a look at here, is that it reminded me what happened, this reversal of the logo thing by Cracker Barrel reminds me, and raise your hands if you remember this from 2016, the dreaded Cook County soda pop tax. Do you remember this? It's almost 10 years ago now when Cook County Board President Tony Preckwinkle said the sugary beverage tax is not only a way to raise much-needed revenue, but it's a way to save our local economy. She said, if we weren't going to have additional revenue, we'd be laying off doctors, nurses, state's attorneys, and correctional officers. That was 9 years ago. And just as a refresher, with the exception of milk, water, and 100% fruit juices, the new penny per ounce tax affected all sugar and artificially sweetened beverages. A 32-ounce fountain drink that was $1.90 would now cost you $2.22. A $2.99 gallon of juice or iced tea was jacked up to $4.27. Here's the part you need to pay attention to, in case you think tariffs are fake. The customers then paid the tax at the checkout, reimbursing the retailers who already paid the tax up front. That's called a little tariff. They already paid it. They get their money back. The consumer always pays it. That lasted from July to October of 2016 and was repealed by the board, the Cook County Board. And I say to myself, after sitting in meetings up the wazoo in radio and broadcasting and development, everything you can imagine, I was always the guy in the room waiting till the end to go, I got a question or four. Is this a really good idea? Do we really want to do something like this? And I kept imagining myself, when you get a bunch of people in one room agreeing on everything and there's no naysayers, it's not a good thing. So at some point, I was hoping that someone in the board meeting would have said, Ms. Preckwinkle, this is not a good idea. We're going to catch what for this. No, it's all going to be fine. It wasn't fine. When you start messing with Coca-Cola, you know what I'm saying? So what's happening, or what happened at Cracker Barrel is the exact same thing to me in premise. They all sat in meetings. They paid consultants $700 million. An eighth grader could have come up with that logo. They could have paid me $1 million, and I would have told them, don't do it. So they paid $700 million to 3 different consulting firms and advertising agencies and marketing people and algorithm people and all this stuff. $700 million, only to have to reverse it within a week because you didn't do your homework. So again, I don't think this is even a woke thing and a MAGA thing. You can paint that if you want. I think this is just common sense. You got a logo. You have a new CEO. I guess you're going to make some changes. And you're going to tick off a certain member of or a certain segment of your customer base. Not a good idea. So I didn't pay attention to the logo. As I said, as long as the catfish is there and I can get the Wayne Bun candy bar on the way out the door, I was good. Don't care. But people are going to backlash. We live in a day of unsocial media. There's nothing that escapes. You can't hide anything. Oh, yeah, just roll it out. I'm in the wrong business. I should have been a consultant going, paid me $700 million to come up with a logo that an eighth grader could create, and then you have to reverse it. I'm thinking, do I get a refund on that? If I was Cracker Barrel, I'd be like, somebody screwed up here, and it needs to be reversed. Give us half the money back. I don't think that's going to happen. A little bit more digging into this with Dan Mason at 3:30. But suffice to say that the new CEO is kind of on the hot plate, no pun intended. And all that goes along with that, the board's not happy, they're not happy with her, and I don't know how much they had to pay the new advertising agency to say, we've heard you clearly. You're our friends. We're going to leave the old man on the logo, and everything will be okay. We get when I get Dan, I'm going to talk about this guy who was like the uncle of the founder. And again, one more shot at this before Dan comes on later, gives me his view. Why in the world would you change it? What possible data could you have mined that says, yes, this here, changing the logo is a really, really good idea, and we're going to make a lot more money. It's all going to be well and good. Never works out. Did they not hear about the Chicago tax on sugary drinks? Did they don't remember New Coke? Do you remember that one? We're going to change the formula for Coca-Cola and put New Coke on there. I'm a Coca-Cola guy. Don't try to slide Pepsi under my nose. I'm a Coca-Cola aficionado. Give me Coke Zero or give me death. No taxation without Coca-Cola representation. And that didn't work either. And it never works. Disney didn't work. Go right down. Bud Light, it didn't work. It never works. So leave stuff alone. Instead of trying to figure out how to manipulate the market and get more customers, just do a better job. I think you'd be better off. Coming up after the bottom of the hour news, Dawn Christie's going to join me. And let me just remind you, tomorrow morning on Chew's Views, Richard Chew will be talking to journalist and transgender rights activist Aaron Reed and Abdul Al-Sayed, Michigan candidate for U.S. Senate. Friday, he'll be talking with comedian and activist Cliff Clash. Chew's Views weekdays from 6 to 8 a.m. He is in her early. I give him a lot of credit. On WCPT 820 a.m., the Heartland Signal website, TuneIn, YouTube, Facebook, and every other place you find WCPT. Back with more after this.
Hey, looking for a winning team on a winning station? You found it right here on WCPT 820 a.m. Join the marvelous one, Dan Marver, the palacious one, Paul Shivari, Sports on the Couches, Mike Mercado, and yours truly, Devin Tingle, every Sunday at 9 p.m. for the Sports Cubicle, where the inmates run the asylum, and the boss, well, they yell at us on Monday morning because we're working overtime. Looking for your late-night dose of sports talk radio? We're here. Join us on the Sports Cubicle, Sunday nights at 9 p.m.
Greece is cheap.
But the airfare costs a fortune.
Paris?
Not much closer, and again, airfare...
What about Puerto Vallarta?
Let's face it, flying anywhere is just too expensive.
Wait, what's this? Low-cost airlines.
With one call to low-cost airlines, you'll drastically slash your travel costs. We're talking insanely low airline prices to any of your favorite destinations. Where would you like to go? London, Rome, Costa Rica, Australia?
Wow, that's cheap.
So why wait? Call now to learn how crazy cheap it is to fly anywhere in the U.S. or international. Our prices are so low, we can't publish them. The only way to get them is to call to instantly hear the most amazing best deals on airline travel. It's that easy. So call now and start packing.
800-708-3091. 800-708-3091. 800-708-3091. That's 800-708-3091.
You're listening to WCPT 820. Here's the latest Chicago weather update.
From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki. Plenty of clouds and sunshine develops this afternoon, high in the upper 70s. West winds around 5 to 10 miles per hour, gusting as high as 15. Then for tonight, a slight chance for some showers and thunderstorms here late. Mostly cloudy skies with a low near 61. By Thursday, a slight chance for showers and thunderstorms. Mostly cloudy skies, high 77 degrees. That's your latest Chicago weather update. Currently, it's 75.
This is Chicago's Progressive Talk, 820 a.m. WCPT Willow Springs, and online at WCPT820.com, where facts matter.
Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive. Filling in today for Joan, Chicago media personality, John St. Augustine.
After 28 years, I've become a Chicago media personality. I think that's a lot of progress since I first started on the radio on August 9th, 27th in 1997. I never thought I'd be a media personality, but hey, here I am. And by the way, as you just heard the weather, if you haven't been outside this afternoon, you're working or whatever, get outside. As Harry Carey would say, it's gorgeous. Hey, if you're struggling to make your mortgage, auto, or credit card payments, you're not alone. You need to do what a lot of people here have done, to call Team Hochberg, your trusted local lender. During the first quarter of 2025, get this, more than 12% of credit card accounts, approximately 5% of auto loans, and nearly 1% of mortgages are more than 90 days past due, which is the highest in 15 years. So if you're having challenges making your payments, the time to call Team Hochberg is today, not tomorrow, not next week, not next year. You call them now. Give them a buzz at 855-563-2843 for a free consult with an experienced Team Hochberg mortgage professional. And if you qualify, Team Hochberg will help you consolidate your debts, enhance your credit, and reduce your monthly payments. That's a win-win-win if you ask me. Team Hochberg has helped thousands of WCPT listeners, but they can't help you if you don't give them a tinkle on the Amici, which is 855-563-2843, or visit 56david.com. One more time, because in radio, we repeat everything twice. The number again is 855-563-2843, and the website you know and love, 56david.com, lower.com, equal housing lender, NMLS 1124061. I got to do that by law, and I did it. All right. Coming up next is someone who I've really become enamored with their work. Her name is Dawn Kristy. She is the founder of Cyber Dawn. Clever, really clever. She's an A&I cybersecurity advisor, a former attorney, an award-winning author. She provides her 25-plus years of expertise to her clients, writing for them, training teams, and speaking at events. And Dawn believes when it comes to AI and cybersecurity, prevention beats reaction every time. Her award-winning book is fantastic. It's called 33 Ways Not to Screw Up Cybersecurity, and provides readers with solid foundations using examples and checklists to keep them cyber savvy. And Dawn, welcome to the show.
Hey, John. I'm happy to be here. Nice to talk to you again.
How was that intro? You want me to do it over?
No, but I want to say twice. Happy anniversary. 28 years today on air. Happy anniversary.
Thank you. Thank you.
Congrats.
Thanks. You know, when I started in this business, we did not have AI. I mean, we may have, but it wasn't called AI. It was just
right.
There was no AI. It was just intelligence. And so over the last, work with me here. I don't get on live radio often. I apologize. But so over the last, let's just use those 28 years as an example. You know, went from a time where there was almost none of that to where it's almost everywhere in our lives at this point. But along with all these great technological advances comes great risk.
Yes, indeed. And two other things I wanted to just say at the beginning is, first, I compliment you for your encyclopedic memory about names, dates, places, and where events happen. Yeah. I've listened to you for years. It's incredible. And also, your modus operandi is kindness, especially when you're on the air. So be kind today.
There you go.
You got to get that in there.
Life's too short.
And also, congrats to your Awaken the Network podcast. I know that had a nice milestone this year. What about that?
So the Awaken Network podcast, a little plug here for my friends. I produced this show for Billy Dexter and Melissa G. Wilson, and it really is in some ways like LinkedIn brought alive, except it has heart and soul. No offense against LinkedIn. I'm not slandering anybody. I'm just saying. So these two are kind of like the Heckle and Jekyll of radio in my world. They're very opposite, but they're going to the same place. They wrote a great book together about networking, and I've known Melissa for almost as long as I've been on the radio. And I've just met Billy the last few years. We've been doing this 3 years now. And the whole idea is to inform, entertain, and inspire without any kind of, charade to it, any kind of, shading to it. It's just nuts and bolts stuff that can help people live their lives better, whether it's professionally or personally. And that's where you and I first met. And I was listening to you on the show that they did, and I'm thinking, this needs to be expanded on as often as possible, because AI is not going away. And we didn't know more and more about it, because I think it knows more and more about us every single day.
Yeah, absolutely. And Melissa was the publisher of my book, Melissa G. Wilson. And so we kind of met through her and the podcast, et cetera. But today I kind of narrowed down 10 talking points, because I know time is limited.
Only 10 from you? Come on.
And you talk really fast and move quickly.
Yes.
So I thought, okay, I got to narrow this down. So the first thing I want to say is AI is already here. If anybody's listening and think it isn't, you just might not know it. And it's been there for a while with search engines, voice assistants, and spam filters, and GPS. And it's often embedded but invisible. So if you say, oh, I don't want anything to do with AI, you're probably using it and not even aware of it. The other thing is there is a real productivity boost from it. There's automation on repetitive tasks, draft documents, summarize emails. There is a time-saving feature that businesses and solo professionals are using. So, this isn't all negative stuff here. But, accuracy, Yeah, accuracy is a question, because then you get the hallucinated facts, and things may sound confident, and you're relying on something, and you step in some mud. And so you have to realize it's not a perfect thing. You can't use it 100% without monitoring it, proofreading, checking what it's done. And I'll pause there for a second.
Well, thank you, because right away I'm thinking if I got to proofread, check it, and rewrite stuff, I might as well do it myself the first time. But that's for another conversation. So the thing that the thing that is interesting to me, like everything, I mean, whether it's the internet or AI or what have you, it's a tool, and humans will use tools to their own ends. Some will use it for good, some will use it for bad. And the thing that I find interesting about AI, like a lot of different technologies, is it's a core sampling of how humans react to certain things, and the inability we seem to have to confirm anything without taking it any further. And I'll give you a case in point. I did a podcast about a month ago on this, because I get so tired of, I spend a lot of time on Facebook promoting what I'm doing or books or whatever. I use it as a business thing. And I come across these memes that they're totally fake. I mean, Stevie Wonder can see they're fake. I can see they're fake. We all know they're fake. And there are people commenting like it's real. And I'm thinking, how can you not understand what this is? So to me, if you're going to put stuff out there and you're going to fall for it, that's kind of on you and not on the person creating it. Because, for every 10 persons that says, this is the most amazing thing in the world, the night's like, what are you, an idiot? It's not true. Yeah. So there's that.
Yeah. And you get into this. One of the points I wanted to make is this whole deep fakes and misinformation that's escalating. And, right now AI can clone voices, faces, text. And you think, okay, what's the big deal? Well, it makes it harder to trust what you see or hear, which is your point. Right. Or people just don't care. And so where the danger is elections, fake kidnappings, wire transfer fraud, and porn. Just to name a few things that fake videos, voices, and faces are being used for. Well, maybe the average person isn't concerned about that until they get a video or call from one of these, thinking it's real, and they're deceived, and they may give money, or they may be injured somehow. The other thing that you're addressing there is like garbage in, garbage out, bias in, bias out. AI systems reflect the data that they're trained on. And the world is biased. And so if most of that data being pulled in is biased, then it's going to be. And that could be discriminatory, hostile, whatever. And it's done at scale. So those are things that perhaps the average user is not aware of.
I remember seeing this video a while back, probably YouTube or something like that. It's obviously contrived. And it was like a guy in a field, like a park, and he's walking his dog. And this giant condor comes down and grabs the dog and takes off, and everybody's screaming. It's totally fake. And he says on there, this could happen, ha, ha, ha. And there are people like, oh, my God, what happened to the dog? I'm like, come on, man. So the thing about artificial intelligence, and I said this earlier, and I know I'm trying to wrangle it in my own mind, maybe the reason we need artificial intelligence is because human intelligence is kind of going down the toilet.
Yeah, well, that's the big debate. Are we going to lose our critical thinking? Will students really be learning, or are they just mimicking and copying things that they find and pasting it into a report? I mean, we're really at an inflection point here on something that is pretty profound. Yeah. And, maybe the average person isn't realizing how this is going to impact us in 1, 2, 3 years. It's moving quicker than the law, quicker than the regulation, and quicker than our own understanding.
Yeah, that's the
things that we can't envision. It's like the Jetsons world, right? Which we thought all this stuff, and half of that stuff from Jetsons is happening now, right?
I know, Rosie and all that stuff. Yeah. But the thing that you said that I think was really important, it is progressing so fast, and the application is so fast. We don't know how to regulate it. Yeah. We don't know what laws to put behind it. It certainly has no ethical boundaries whatsoever. There's nothing. Listen, anybody that's been in radio, and Lady B can attest to this, and anybody that's ever worked in this business can tell you, if you're really good at editing, I can make you sound any way I want you to sound. I could create stuff. I mean, I've done it as a joke for friends on their birthday, but I could take a conversation and totally edit it to a point where it's nothing you really said, but I took your words and no one ever would know. That's one level, but we're talking about to the nth degree here with imagery and music and all the bells and whistles that get people moving, and taking these totally fake, not real images and putting them in one space and saying this is real. One of the ones going around now is the last one I heard, that Brett Favre, who played for the Green Bay Packers, is now a majority stakeholder in the Packers. And he put $500 million in and all this stuff. Well, first of all, he couldn't do that because that's not how the Packers are set up. And secondly, he never did it. And third, if you look underneath, it says click here for the full story, which means that's called clickbait. And you click on that, and all those clicks get somebody money by the advertising you got to sit through. And literally, there's 300, responses, and 290 are like, way to go, Brett. How do you fix that?
Yeah, and the other thing about clickbait is it's not only getting money, that could lead you to a malicious site where then you're putting in your credit card, your birth date, all that fun stuff, right? Yeah, so that's really a dilemma. So we're going to get to a point where can we recognize truth or not? And so AI cannot be ethical on its own.
Right.
People must decide how to use it. Businesses must decide. And then, in the meantime, strategists are out there saying, how do we improve governance, which is policy, security, which is awareness, and ethics, which is behavior? Well, right now in the U.S., we have a patchwork of Band-Aid solutions, right? Overall policies aren't developed. They may be in the next 1, 2, 3 years. And that's happening alongside AI agents, which is now moving on from just tools, but agents that you have in your home or agents you have in your business that you create to help you with various tasks. And we don't actually know what to envision and how far that's going in the next couple of years because this is moving so quickly. And so we're lagging behind, and the genie's out of the bottle, so to speak.
And, we're going to take a break here in about 15 seconds, but the end of that Brett Favre thing was if you scroll through Facebook, then you see that Michael Jordan did the same thing. He bought most of the Bulls, and they go down the list of all these famous athletes, and it's the exact same story, plug and play with somebody else, totally not true, clickbaits all over the place, and people getting hooked right in the cheek, left and right. It's fascinating human behavior to me. We'll take a short time out, take care of the people that take care of us. Back with more right here on WCPT, where facts friggin' matter.
Get started on your painting project and save big money at Menards. Zinsser Fast Prime 2 Plus Primer and Sealer is the go-to solution for tackling nearly any surface that needs to be sealed. Its fast dry time and excellent high hiding formula allows for it to be used as a versatile everyday primer. Save big money on Zinsser Fast Prime 2 Plus Primer now at Menards. Plus, check out our weekly flyer on Menards.com for all the great deals happening now.
Save big money at Menards.
WCPT Replay.
I have to welcome from the 26th District up in Madison, Wisconsin, none other than Senator Kelda Royce.
I'm really a big tent person. I think that politics is math, and you got to get to 50% plus one. And if you don't want Trump to modify the judiciary, and if you don't want us to lose our democracy, then we have got to compete and win in places where Democrats have not been very competitive. If you look at communities that are going far red, we have to find candidates that fit that district. And you know what? On the left, I think sometimes we get a little too focused on hunting heretics in our own ranks rather than cultivating converts. And let me tell you, our political opponents are out there cultivating converts every single day. They're trying to corrupt the next generation. They are overseeing a media empire that is focused on propaganda and disinformation.
Keep listening to WCPT 820 because facts matter.
This is WCPT 820. Where facts matter.
Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive. Filling in today for Joan, Chicago media personality, John St. Augustine.
Back here on WCPT, somebody just sent a text in. What do you think happened to the dog? I think the condor had a little bit of lunch. If you want to jump in on the conversation, maybe you had some run-ins with AI and things like that. The Credo Mobile, what happened to the dog? The Credo Mobile phone and text line is 773-763-9278. WCPT listeners now get 25% off. That's a huge amount of cash off for the 2 years at Credo Mobile with the code WCPT25. Credo Mobile, a progressive phone company that is better for all people in the planet. Visit credomobile.com. So if you're into some AI stuff and all that type of stuff, or you think you know what happened to the dog, you can give me a call. We'll get you on the air. Dawn Kristy is joining me. She is all things to do with... See, this is the kind of stuff what happened to the dog? And and I've already seen this already. Did Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce really get engaged, or is it just fake AI? Lady B's looking like maybe. What do you think?
I think it's real, but wasn't it International Dog Day yesterday?
Yes, it was. Yeah, that's where the dog's at. He's at a party.
Yeah.
So you had a couple more points on this. Go ahead.
Yeah, so there's like three news stories. First of all, we're a litigious society. We sue for everything. Somebody's to blame, right?
Yep.
So, of course, AI prompts and outputs may be discoverable now. There's cases going through the court systems without going into names and states where they're actually saying that AI can be discoverable evidence in litigation.
What?
So it runs up against the privilege and work product. And if you have protected prompts, but then you rely on them in court filings, that you may lose the privilege. And the prompts in a pre-suit or during a suit may be subject to discovery. So that's a huge new change if that happens.
Well, real quick, as a former attorney, can you translate that for the rest of us?
Sure. So basically, your prompts and outputs can be evidence in a case. So if you're not keeping track of what you created and sent, and somebody says, well, you told me to do this, and it's like, no, I didn't. And then somebody says, we want to see what the prompts actually were and what the AI tool output was. And then that's going to be brought into a case, meaning it's discoverable. It just means that it's now going to be discovered as evidence, where here you are typing into ChatGPT, asking about something your neighbor did, and then the neighbor sues you, and suddenly it's evidence in the case.
Wow.
Does that make it simple enough?
Perry Mason is spinning like a pinwheel in his grave. Wow.
So the other thing is we have a big concern with minors right now. And 2 points, I'll take the easier one first. The other one's really sad. So dozens of U.S. attorneys general are warning AI firms, protect children or you face legal consequences. Because it's one thing for us adults to have issues, but AI is encouraging self-harm and romantic role play with minors, which is not healthy. And so there's public pressure to highlight the need for ethical and technical safeguards around AI with minors. Now, the serious case and the sad case is a family of a 16-year-old who committed suicide. They're suing for wrongful death. The parents allege that ChatGPT validated their son's self-destructive thoughts and helped him draft a suicide note. And it sort of became his confidence contributing to his death. Now, that is sad. That's a real-world tragedy. That's a risk. And so this idea that people are befriending the tool, either out of encouragement or loneliness or whatever the reason is. This is now something that we have to think about with children using the tool, and who may be bullied and ask about it. And suddenly they may say something like, well, how do I end my life? And even if the tools try to block that, they may be around it and say, well, how would somebody do this if they were teaching it? And they find ways to prompt to get the information. And so I don't know, without going into the details of the matter, this is now, a lawsuit. There's been other issues where there's been deaths, but this is sort of the lawsuit that was just filed, I believe, this month. And so this idea of we need legal, technical, and ethical guardrails for minors.
I got to tell you, on a totally different direction, this reminds me, and see if I can make a segue here. It may not work, but I'm going to give it a shot. I remember reading an article that there are thousands of men, especially in Europe and Asia and places like that, and probably in the States too, that they have an AI girlfriend. That they have an AI girlfriend that interacts with them and talks to them, and I guess they can't get a real human to do that, so they have these, and the human mind doesn't know the difference apparently, So I find the levels of this interaction with AI and ChatGPT and all these kind of things more of a reflection of our non-evolution than the evolution of the technology itself. The technology, as Bucky Fuller used to say, the fantastic inventor used to say, our technology is far surpassing our humanity. We're creating stuff with no idea how it's going to turn out, what's going to happen to us, and there are very few rails or safeguards on this stuff to keep us safe from ourselves.
Yeah, it's true.
That's why we have you.
Loneliness is Well, loneliness is an epidemic, right, around the world. And then you've got this tool and the idea of companions. You're right, that's worldwide. And so this idea of reshaping our roles and evolving and upskilling, we're talking about that with jobs. Mm-hmm. But really, what about evolving our roles in just relationships with other people? And there were films about that, too, with interacting with the AI tool and the voice and everything. And so, yeah, I mean, how dependent will some people become on these tools? And so that's not really, that's, as you say, it's almost like a human tendency, a psychological risk than it is any sort of like security or whatever. That's the outright dependence on something that is really coming through your computer or phone.
Well, think about it. The people that invent this stuff are a lot smarter than I am, obviously. But I'm smart enough to know that, Willie Nelson and John Denver weren't hanging out in the same bar after, in 1999 because he died in 1997. And they put them both in the same picture. So I find these things that people are mashing up. They go, oh, wasn't that a great thing? No, he's been dead for 2 years at that point. So I look at these things and I say to myself, and I don't know if people, get that once they get taken. I was just telling Lady B, I was talking with a friend of mine today, and I told her you were coming up on the show, and she happened to mention that, she had gotten in a difficult situation, some things that happened with AI, and it looked totally legit and totally normal, and it was not. Mm-hmm. So how do we discern what's right and what isn't, what's real and what's not? How do we get to that point?
On an individual case basis, you have to really double check. I mean, if somebody, like the Brad Pitt story where this woman sends him like $800,000 thinking that she was, and it was fake. So you have to go drill back to the original person, the original site, the original whatever, and just don't take that message that you're getting verbatim as the truth. And so if you're not inclined to be aware and then proof, and that's where I got into this point of proofing, you have to really double check things, especially if somebody's asking you for money, sex, dates, whatever it might be. You have to say, hey, wait a minute. Or you get a phone call. Right before this call, I had an unknown call, and then it went to voicemail, something about some tax advice. It's like, my taxes were filed months ago and everything's fine. But somebody may pick up their phone and say, oh, I have to do something with the IRS site, and then they'll go and put their stuff in. So some of these risks and threats are automated, like the calling and the texting and all of that. And it really comes down to awareness. But you're right. We're going to get to a point, perhaps, where we always decipher what's true and what's not. And, you've seen these videos of Tom Cruise, and they look identical, and you can't pick them up. So, my whole thing is, and I've said this to startup groups, let's have the brightest minds come up with detection tools. And there are tools out there. AI is also used for cyber security and for security. But the more we're able to detect the fakes and the frauds and the scams, the better off we'll be. And so we have to have that side of the development happen.
About 10 years ago, I started a Facebook page called Reality Check. Because I got tired.
I love that phrase.
Oh, yeah.
I love it.
I got so tired of this stuff this is 10 years ago almost. And this stuff rolling constantly and people commenting. So I would go investigate it. And if you've never been to Snopes.com, SNOPES.com, they are the best clearinghouse if you want to know if stuff is BS or true. These people, all they do is dig for the truth, and they say true, false, misleading, in between. Snopes.com. If you have any, if you're wondering if Taylor and Travis really got married, you can go to Snopes and check it out. But they clear all that stuff. So I started using them as a baseboard, and then I would repost this stuff. And even then people are like, no, that's not true. Oh, come on, man. Yeah. Cut some slack here. So I gave up on that because that would be a 24/7, 365 job, and I wasn't going to get into that. But part of me realized back then, Dawn, that this hasn't changed much. The technology's changed, but the human gullibility factor has not.
And we talked about this before.
Yes, and if it had changed, we would exactly.
Yeah.
Expand on that.
We don't want to be secure. We have free will. We were given free will, and if we don't want to follow putting batteries in smoke alarms, or not texting and driving, or run against the light for the bus, that's your risk tolerance level. That's your choice. If you get hit on the way to the bus, well, you crossed against the light. Okay, I took the chance.
Mm-hmm.
And so we've seen that historically in this resistance to not being told what to do, even if it's for your own good, where you hear a mother say, don't text and drive, don't text and drive. And after the 40 times she says it, maybe the teenager does not text and drive. But it takes that constant repetition, to get through to people. And so we are not inclined, I think, by nature to be safe and secure. We have to be taught, we have to be aware, and we have to have it repeated.
I have a friend of mine who's a very prominent psychiatrist, and he works at a big health organization. And he says, John, the way we see the world is basically intact by the time we're 9, 10, 11. It's already embedded. It's how we grew up, what we believe, what we saw. All that stuff's like locked in as a base. And unless you take time to investigate the rest of your life and educate yourself, you will always see the world the same way. And if you grew up where a lot of this stuff is going on and you're not, you're gullible or you're whatever, if you're susceptible to that stuff, if you don't do your own education, nothing changes. You become a victim of everything your whole life. And I keep thinking to myself, folks, we have more information at our fingertips than any group of humans who have ever lived on planet Earth have, literally on our phone. Has more technology than the lunar module, and we still can't figure it out. Listen, Dawn, people want to find you and find your book and all the kind of stuff that goes along with that. How do they do it?
So you can find me at my website, thecyberdawn.com, and also under Dawn Kristy at LinkedIn. In the fall, I'm launching my AI risk awareness course, so keep an eye out for that. And thanks for having me, John.
Absolutely. But before I let you go, I got about 10, 15 seconds. You can ask me about Jurassic Park.
Oh, yeah. What about it? Should we be building those dinosaurs?
No. Just because you can make dinosaurs, apparently it's not a good idea. Same thing with AI, but that's just me. Anyway, I appreciate your time today. As always, you're the expert. Thanks so much for taking time.
Thanks for having me. Bye, John.
Bye-bye. That's how it rolls over here. I mean, this is where facts matter. This is the fact jack, as they say in the news business. We'll take a short break at the top of the hour for the news. Come back after this with Peter Tiernan. We'll talk about his new book, Once in Chicago, right here on WCPT.
Viking, dedicated to creating travel experiences for the thinking person, with programs designed for cultural enrichment on board and on shore. Discover more at Viking.com.
AP News. I'm Ed Donahue. President Trump has ordered flags at half-staff to mark the shooting at a Minneapolis school. He called it a mark of respect for the victims of the senseless acts of violence. The shooter opened fire with a rifle through the windows of a Catholic church in Minneapolis and struck children celebrating Mass during the first week of school, killing 2 and wounding 17. Brian O'Hara is the police chief in Minneapolis.
The sheer cruelty and cowardice of firing into a church full of children is absolutely incomprehensible.
O'Hara said the shooter, armed with a rifle, shotgun, and pistol, approached the side of the church and shot dozens of rounds through the windows at Annunciation Catholic School. Police believe the shooter later took his own life. Minnesota Congresswoman Ilhan Omar says now is the time to grieve and recover.
But we know that once this investigation is done, once these families are made whole, then we can have the national conversation that is necessary to stop school shootings like this from taking place in our communities.
The children who died were 8 and 10. In a post on X, FBI Director Kash Patel said the shooting is being investigated as an act of domestic terrorism and hate crime targeting Catholics. The Trump administration is taking management of Union Station away from Amtrak. It's the latest example of the federal government's exerting its power over Washington, D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser said the administration's track record is not good.
We know having masked ICE agents in the community has not worked, and National Guards from other states has not been an efficient use of those resources.
Lawyers for Kilmar Abrego Garcia told a federal judge the persecution and torture he might face if deported to Uganda support his efforts to obtain asylum in the U.S. This is AP News. Alligator Alcatraz is likely to empty in a matter of days.
According to an email exchange shared with the Associated Press. In a message sent to Florida Rabbi Mario Roseman, who provides religious services there, Florida's Emergency Management Director Kevin Guthrie says, "We are probably going to be down to 0 individuals within a few days." This comes as Republican Governor Ron DeSantis and the Trump administration fight a judge's order to shutter the facility by late October. Alligator Alcatraz was supposed to hold up to 3,000 detainees as part of Trump's deportation push. At one point, it held almost 1,000 detainees, but Representative Maxwell Frost, a Democrat, says he was told during a tour last week only up to 350 remain. I'm Julie Walker.
Devin Walker and Emil Joachim are leaving Saturday Night Live, among the first of what could be several cast departures leading up to SNL's 51st season. Ed Donahue, AP News.
This is 8:20 a.m. WCPT Willow Springs and streaming worldwide at WCPT820.com. We are Chicago's progressive talk, where facts matter. Now your WCPT 820 weather update.
I'm meteorologist Ray Miller from the Weatherology Weather Center. A chance of scattered showers and storms tonight with a low temperature of 63 and southwest winds at 5 to 10. Thursday, chance of thunderstorms with a high temperature of 75 and winds out of the northwest at 5 to 15 miles an hour. Friday, plenty of sunshine with a high temperature around 68 degrees. Saturday, sunshine with a high temperature of 71. Sunday, plenty of sun with a high around 74. That's the latest Chicago weather update. Right now, it's 75.
You're the only voice of reason on the radio.
You give me hope.
Having listened to you every day.
Thank you for your clear insight.
Always felt a little bit smarter.
I listen to you every single day.
I keep coming back to this station, and thank you for what you do.
On WCPT 820, Chicago's progressive talk.
You're listening to WCPT 820 because facts matter.
Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive. Filling in today for Joan, Chicago media personality, John St. Augustine.
I am sitting in for Joan today. She'll be back tomorrow at this time. Her guests then include retired Army Major General Snap Salute Randy Manner, former acting vice chair of the National Guard Bureau and member of National Security Leaders for America. Professor William Muck will be here with Joan on Friday, and his guests include Kevin Schultz, professor of history at the UIC, and author of Why Everyone Hates White Liberals, including White Liberals, a history. I'm not going to miss that one. Speaking of novels and books and things like that, about a month and a half ago, Dawn Kristy, who was just on the show, we thank her again for taking the time, mentioned this Awaken Network podcast that I produce. And we have a fantastic array of guests and all that type of thing. And this gentleman, Peter Tiernan, was on, and it was a really a captivating conversation. Most of the people that they have on that show are kind of really steeped in the business end of things. But this guy is a prolific author and writer. And this particular book he has out now called Once in Chicago was just released this past May. Chronicles the adventures of a heartbroken, city-hardened, and ultimately love-struck 19-year-old working at a famous bar off Rush Street in the summer of 1978. And I thought, hey, he wrote about me. That's my life back in 1978. Peter Tiernan has really done it all. He was a writer for ESPN and CBS Sports. He specialized in statistical analysis of how to fill out your NCAA tournament brackets. He's a graduate of University of Michigan, Go Blue, with a master's in English. And Pete joins me on WCPT. Hey, Pete, welcome to the show.
Hey, John, how are you?
Good to talk to
you again.
First of all, same here. First of all, Lady B, he is on a landline. How much do we love a landline guy? We do miss it.
I am on a Great Lake too, but I am all the way on the other side of Michigan and Canada. So I figured I better get on a landline.
I remember when landline was just a military term, but we thank you for doing that. That's for sure. As I mentioned, your book came out in May. You were on the Awaken the Network podcast a little while back, and I was just so captivated by the story and your ability to tell it because, especially here in Chicago, it is the city of broad shoulders. It's nitty gritty. That whole Rush Street thing was such a big friggin' deal. And I'm not kidding that when I read the book, I literally thought that's not only me, but 5 other guys that I know. How did you pull that off?
Well, you know, the interesting thing is I only lived in Chicago for 3 months out of my 66 years. But those 3 months, as I looked back and was writing the book, it really struck me how formative they were in my life. My dad was childhood friends with Butch McGuire.
Mm-hmm.
So
the famous Butch McGuire.
The famous Butch McGuire. They went to school together at what was then Morgan Park Military Academy. It's now just Morgan Park, still in Chicago. And then they went off to the University of Michigan. Well, fast forward to the end of my freshman year, I'm leaving school. I have a girlfriend. I think she's the one that that I'm going to get really serious about. And I come to Wheaton, Illinois. We had just moved there. Didn't know what I was going to do for a job. And my dad talked to Butch, and Butch said, "Well, why doesn't he work at my bar? And furthermore, he can't be commuting to Wheaton and back every day, so why doesn't he live in my basement?"
Great idea.
Yeah, so, and I was, at first I was kind of intimidated, to be honest. And that's one thing that in the book I really tried to capture the mindset of Pete Tiernan as a 19-year-old in 1978. And, so capturing that voice and capturing the kinds of things I was interested in, which were stereo,
girls,
and music, and girls, and partying, and all that kind of stuff. So, that was one of the challenges of the book, was to get into that particular moment. Anyway, what ended up happening was, within a couple weeks, the girl that I thought, this is the one, called me up and said, I hate to tell you, I'm not coming back to Michigan.
I'm not the one.
I'm not the one. I'm going to go to Colorado. And that sort of set me off on this, what ended up becoming kind of an awakening journey, not to use your Awaken the podcast, but it was an awakening journey for me for 3 months working at Butch McGuire's.
So, interesting. Here's my first question was, because you're a novelist. I mean, not like a budding novelist. You've written 5 novels, correct?
Right.
Yeah, 5, folks, 5 novels. And how difficult is it to write about yourself or your former self as opposed to creating characters for other books? Is that more difficult?
I don't know if you know the artist or the writer Lee Fenger, but somebody asked him that once, and he goes, I'm in every one of my books. I might be more disguised than, in some than the other. This was probably the most undisguised. Much of what happens in the book is reality. And somebody asked me, why didn't you just write a memoir? It's because a lot of the stuff that happens in the bar, and I should mention this because I changed the name from Butch McGuire's to Bud's, because there's a sort of a drug scandal that goes on in the book that did not happen at Butch's. It actually happened in Ann Arbor. So in a way, it was easier to write. It was kind of liberating to write. They always talk about write what you know, and that was an intimidating. That was an intimidating edict for me because, I always felt like, well, who am I? I haven't done that much. But if you really take a moment of your life and explode it, we all have those moments that go largely unexamined that really changed us. And so, I purposely sat down to write about this moment that, ended up really leading me to the woman that I ended up marrying and that I'm still with.
So the other part of this for me is that, I've written 3 books of my own. They're not novels. They are all about my life. And I should say, have you told your readers about Iron Man by Randy they
Hundley?
may or may not have heard it. I may have been on since I wrote the book. That was a book I wrote about the great cub catcher Randy Hundley. It came out a couple of years ago. We're still waiting for the ebook. Amazon takes forever. Peter, the world was better when Amazon was just a river. I'm here to tell you, because it was just a whole lot quieter. But anyway, we're waiting for the audiobook to be uploaded. But the book's done great. It's got great reviews. Randy is a legend here in Chicago. So, I appreciate that. But when you write about yourself, even though you're kind of cloaked in the thing, and this is my experience with writing the books about my life, which has been very, very interesting to say the least. Otherwise, it's like that old saying, what is it? Don't sit down to write till you stood up to live. And a lot of people sit down and write stuff. They haven't done anything, but that's a whole nother show. But right. I realized as I was chronicling this journey I've been on, you and I are the same age. We were about the same time, the same space. You were here for 3 months in 78. I lived here in 78, so it was my, growing up. But who didn't know Rutt Street, and who didn't know Butch McGuire's, and who didn't want to go down there and do the things and get all wrapped up into that stuff? But I realized when I revisited the events of my life decades later, of course, the perspective was everything. But there was also a cathartic kind of healing that kind of went on. But for lack of a better term, I was able to see my younger self with softer eyes and a little bit more forgiveness for being, the youth that I was and all that kind of stuff. Like the time on Halloween, I thought it was a really good idea to become the Incredible Hulk. I was in really good shape by playing football in college, so I went out and got green RIT dye for clothes, and I dyed my body green. And I decided the best thing I could do on the way to the Halloween party was run into the Osco drugstore I worked at and jump up on the counter and yell, "I'm the Incredible Hulk," which scared the bejesus out of everybody that worked there. They didn't realize it was me. They called the cops, and I got arrested.
Never made it to the party.
Never made it. My dad's like, leave him in there overnight. I ain't getting him out. So those type of little things.
You could make this a tradition there, John. You
don't want to see me. No,
green on St. Patrick's Day. Yeah.
So, but when I go back and visit some of that stuff, I think, gosh, it was fun but stupid. When you wrote about yourself in the book and couched it this way, how did you see your former self?
Yeah, as I say, that was one of the challenges, was to look at, the priorities that I had back then. And I suppose the process of doing it, like you say, it made me a little bit more forgiving of myself. There are still things to this day that I regret about that. And, one of the things that struck me is that, that was 47 years ago. And I met a ton of people at Butch's, and not one of them is I've lost contact with every single one of them. And in fact, one of the people who was an inspiration for one of the characters in the book, the character Susie, I just learned a month ago that she passed away from cancer, and it absolutely gutted me. Yeah. It just, because I'd always, in the back of your mind, you're writing this book and you're thinking, well, what if she read this? What if what would she think? And I don't get to. I'll never know exactly what she thought, but in a way, it was you are coming to terms with something, and as I say, it was a period of my life I just never examined fully enough.
Who does, right?
Go from, yeah, exactly. Yeah. You just move on, right? But there are those moments in your life that and they can be very, very brief. I mean, one of the things I wanted to capture in there was kind of the blur that everything's happening too fast quality. And so, the first-person narrative allowed me to do that. If I would have done third-person narrative, I don't think it would have come off the way it did.
It's one thing to write for ESPN. It's another thing to write, for CBS Sports, and then you lose me in the statistical analysis stuff. My brain does not go there. How do you make the leap from that to all of what you've been doing as a writer?
Well, with ESPN, I had I think I was. The reason they hired me is because I had a statistical database going back to 1985. So I was pretty steeped in statistics, but the writing was dry. After a while, it got pretty rote. And what I found out was statistics can't, as crazy as the tournament is, with all the upsets, and especially now with the change and the dominance of the bigger, basically mid-majors are like the farm system for these big colleges. It's just completely unpredictable who's going to win. So I think I found out that with statistics over the course of time, you could improve your bracket by like 3 picks or something like that. So, here I was writing for 10 years, and I thought, you know what, this isn't very important. So, and that I think that's. I was jazzed to start writing and to to be liberated in that respect.
Peter Tiernan is joining me. He's got a fantastic new book out that I think if you grew up in Chicago in the 70s, it'd be required reading, Pete. This should be in everybody's high school reading list. It's called Once in Chicago. It was released this past May. As we were talking about, it chronicles the adventures of you must have written this yourself. Heartbroken, city-hardened, ultimately love-struck 19-year-old working at a famous bar off Rush Street in the summer of '78. And I reading that line and going through the book earlier today, as I have already once before, it was really like a time capsule, right? So I didn't go to Rush Street as much, but we had our own bars. To me, Rush Street was like the epitome of bardom, but we all had them. And matter of fact, and I try to remember this every time I come on and sit in for Joan, maybe 3 blocks from here, west of here, there was a bar called Lasco's. I don't know what it is now. And I was a bouncer there for 2 years. It's literally 3 blocks. Wow. Yeah. So when I drive by here, I'm like, I threw a guy in the street over there. We threw a guy out the window over here. I remember banging a guy's head off a pool table over here. And I think about who I was at that time, and I could write a book about it, but I don't want to. The statute of limitations probably hasn't run out yet. But this is what this book does, and I think that's what you do as a writer is you take us each. We went to your place, but we also went to our place. I mean, that's by design, right?
Yeah. So, there were, 1978, that was the era of disco clashing with punk. I mean, we did get down to Faces. We went to O'Banion's, which was, one of the big punk bars. At the time, there was La Mer Vipere or something like that, which used to be the original punk bar. And that it just so happened that the first month that I was in Chicago, O'Banion's opened up, and it blew my mind. It was reckless and chaotic and violent, and I wanted to capture that feeling of this naive kid, and mostly I'm a suburb kid. I lived in Wheaton. When I was in Michigan, I lived in Bloomfield Hills. Pretty.
I was going to say tough neighborhoods. Yeah, right.
Not exactly mean streets.
Yeah.
So, getting to Chicago was an eye-opener for me.
I can remember going down to Rush Street with my friends, and we never went in a bar. We just drove up and down Rush Street. We just wanted to watch what was going on the sidewalk was sometimes more entertaining than anything that was going on inside the bar about 2 o'clock in the morning.
Outside Faces was a show, that's for sure.
When you think about how things have changed in your life, I mean, you're a granddad now, as am I. Yep. But I don't think I've ever lost that 19-year-old kid. He pops up now and again, especially when I was reading your book. I'm like, I get it. So what are you hearing back from people that read the book? I've already read the online reviews. They all love it. It's fantastic and great and wonderful and good. But what do you hear back off that from people who've read this and maybe how they're relating to the book Once in Chicago?
Yeah, I think the thing that surprises me the most is how many young people are reading it. Like, I did not anticipate that, and I've had a number of people reach out to me and tell me how much they loved it. They don't, and it's interesting because 1978, no cell phones,
right?
Which was like, as I was trying to remember like what I did, I was like, I was on the payphone a lot in Chicago. So
a payphone in a booth,
in a greasy spoon diner on the corner of Clark and Division, and I have a lot of people who will, talk about it from a nostalgic point of view. They remember all these places, and that was certainly a little part of it, me trying to capture, and contain, bottle up those moments. But, the bigger surprise is how the story is resonating for young people.
It's just so interesting to me. You get an idea to write a book, and then it's you and I know, and if you've not written a book, folks, it's not for the faint of heart. I'm telling you, right out of the gate, there is a lot of work in it. Getting it from zero to everything is a difficult, challenging task. There's a lot of late nights, a lot of early mornings, more rewrites than you can count. All the pieces that go into getting a finished product. But I got to say, the one thing that jumped out before anything else, Pete, was the cover.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
I have to credit. I'm going to have to put my glasses on because there was a guy who has an Instagram account. His name is Nathan Macaluso, and he did the photo that's on the cover, but I sort of did I did the filtering in Photoshop to create that kind of impressionist Gauguin-like view you've got. And the reason I did that again was to sort of have this, reinforce the impressionistic notions of the book, that it was kind of like this blur coming at you. And so that's where that came from.
The thing that grabbed me out right out of the gate is I've seen that view a million times. The way that you have it lit, the way the shading is, the way the buildings are downtown. I'm like, I've seen it early in the morning and I've seen it late at night. It really, I stopped. I'm like, oh, I know this. Even though it is not a photograph, it is in my mind, it's a photograph. And you're able to tie those two things together, the content of the book and it really, it's like it just one led into the other, Pete. It was just, I told you this, I think last time we talked, I'm like, the cover was just something else. And you shouldn't judge a book by its cover. This one, you don't have to. You just walk in and buy the book and get it. It's fantastic. The book is called Once in Chicago. It was released this past May. You can get it on Amazon and all their places on the web and all that type of stuff. Pete, is it in bookstores or just online?
You can get it in bookstores. It's on the Ingram. You're going to have to special order it. I will be October 8th. I'm talking with the Friends of American Writers. I think that's you have to pay $50, I think, to get into that event. But they'll have books, and then there's a place called The Bookseller, CELLAR.
Very clever.
Where the book will, it's on. It's in the area that the story takes place, so I thought that was fitting. But it'll be at that bookstore as well.
So off the record, even though half the Chicago is listening to this program, we're going to have to talk at some point because I have 3 or 4 books that I thought are all novels, but I think I'm going to end up with an anthology because I don't have the time, energy, or effort to write all this stuff like you have. I find it fascinating and give you a lot of credit. I know how difficult it is to take and be creative and accurate at the same time and tell a great story, especially about this city and your former younger self. The book is Once in Chicago. I highly recommend. 5 stars, stamping it right here. Did you go out and pick this book up? Available on Amazon. Peter Tiernan is the author. Pete, thanks so much for A, checking in, B, using a landline, and C, for writing the book.
And John, it's always great talking to you. Thank you very much.
All right, take care. We're going to take a short time out, break away for the news in just a few minutes. But let me just remind you that I didn't realize this because I had to ask my producer. Apparently, we're live on Facebook or something and YouTube. And where else are we? CBS News? I don't know. But if you go to Facebook, the WCPT Progressive Talk Facebook page, apparently you can watch me do this show. Did I ever tell you? So this is another little rollback to 28 years ago, kind of. I'd probably been on the air maybe 3 years at that point. I'd moved from the CBS affiliate. I started on to a place called the Radio Results Network. And I replaced Dr. Laura. If you ever heard of her, she was a big deal back in the 90s and early 2000s. And I replaced Dr. Laura on like 40 stations. And people didn't like that. I got a lot of hate mail. It was the first time people send me bad words that didn't know me. The people that knew me, I could live with it. But I simply replaced this person on radio, which shows you they don't like change. Anyway, eventually, one thing led to another, and Charter Communications, which I don't even know if they exist anymore, they came to me one day and said, hey, you're a popular guy on the radio. This was 1999, 2000 maybe. We want to put a television camera in your studio. And I thought that's the most absurd thing I ever heard of. Why would you, who's going to sit and watch a guy on the radio, on television? Well, we're just going to try as an experiment. So they put this camera in my studio up in the corner, and I had a little remote control switch. I could move things around. It would go from me to the book I was talking about or the author or what have you, and that was really it. And I just thought, geez, I need one more thing to do in the studio. I'm doing a show, and now I got to direct a camera. Then I had to be cognizant of wearing pants. I had to wear pants in the studio, Lady B. I had to dress like I'm, a normal human. And so we did this for about a year. And because of that, I went into 80 markets on television on the Charter Communications channel, which is like channel 3 or 4, I don't remember. And for 3 hours, Monday through Friday, people would sit in their house and watch me do radio, states, all over the Midwest. And I thought it was the craziest thing I'd ever heard of. And now it's just the way of things. I think back then when that happened, the only other 2 people that were on the televised piece of radio was Howard Stern maybe, and Don Imus. And we're going to talk a little bit about the guy who worked with Don Imus in just a few minutes. Dan Mason's coming up. He's going to be checking in here shortly. And we're going to talk about this Cracker Barrel thing. We'll probably get into some radio stuff too, but we're going to talk about this Cracker Barrel thing as well, because he made a comment about this on LinkedIn, and I saw it, and I thought, well, that's vintage Dan Mason, finding another route and looking for the good inside this really kind of bad decision. And he's the only guy that I can talk about it. And as I mentioned, he plucked me from somewhat relative obscurity at Harpo. I'd been doing a radio show, and he heard me on the radio in his wife's car, and we've been working together ever since. And so that was a 2-foot putt to have him on today and talk about this stuff with Cracker Barrel. And coming up after that, at 4 o'clock, Mandy Jankus is going to be joining me. She is the certified life coach and grief counselor who has been really in so many ways paramount in how I see death and how I deal with death and grief, because it is the equal opportunity employer, unfortunately. And then coming up a little bit later after that, Jennifer Weigel is going to check in at some point. We're going to talk about what she's got going on. And I believe at 4:15, before Weigel checks in, John Barry is going to be on the line with me. He's coming to Arlington Heights. Hey Nonny is his concert. He doesn't, I think every other year he comes up here, but he's got a growing audience up here. Then he heads to Minneapolis and Wisconsin. But this is a guy who sells out everywhere he goes below the Mason-Dixon line. Then he comes up, he's got 5,000 people at the Opry. And the next week he's in Arlington Heights on Hey Nonny on a little stage, and he does the exact same show. It's fascinating stuff. So all that is coming up, and I got a little special tribute at the end of the show that we'll get to that a little bit later. But now, is it too early to go to the news? Because I need a break. My throat has had enough for about 5 minutes. Anyway, Lady B, we'll come back with more on WCPT right after this. Stick around for Dan Mason.
If you're drowning in debt, you need to call Team Hochberg, your trusted local lender, about a fresh start debt consolidation refinance. Today, meet Jordan, 47, project manager, married to Jackie, 43, executive assistant, combined income 260 G's a year, living in a $600,000 home with their 3 kids, called to pay off $120,000 worth of credit card debt, high interest rate consumer loans, and 2 401k loans. Team Hochberg loan officer Cindy Piazza helped Jordan and Jackie pay off their debt, eliminated their stress with the Team Hochberg Fresh Start Debt Consolidation Refinance, which saved them over $12,000 a year. Team Hochberg's helped thousands of radio listeners, but we can't help if you don't call 855-563-2843 or visit 56david.com. That number again is 855-563-2843 or visit that website you know and love, 56david.com. Lower.com, equal housing lender, MLS 112-4061.
Is your upper floor too hot in the summer? Are energy bills climbing with every degree? Green Attic can help. With over 15 years of experience and more than 1,000 5-star reviews, Green Attic is a trusted Chicagoland name for insulation, ventilation, and roofing solutions that improve comfort, energy efficiency, and indoor air quality. They specialize in attic insulation, spray foam, crawl space encapsulation, mold remediation, and solar attic fan installation, all designed to keep your home cooler in the warmer months. Green Attic also offers full-service roofing through Green Attic Roofing, including traditional and solar roofing systems with instant online quotes and long-lasting, eco-friendly materials. Green Attic backs its work with the industry's only 10-year labor warranty, plus lifetime warranties on selected materials. Schedule a free installation consultation at greenattic.com or get an instant roofing quote at greenatticroofing.com. That's greenattic.com and greenatticroofing.com.
Diabetes, high blood pressure, anxiety meds, everyone's on them. If you're a 50-year-old male, maybe a bit porky, and you may even have type 2 diabetes, $1 million of term insurance may only cost you about $200 a month. Call Term Provider. Speak with Big Lou at 800-200-1966. Big Lou will find a term life policy for you even if you have type 2 diabetes, are overweight, or have high blood pressure. Term Provider has helped thousands of people like you who think they can't afford term life insurance. To buy $1 million of affordable term life for you, all you need to do is call Big Lou at 800-200-1966. Lou will make sure the scales are tipped in your favor. Call 800-200-1966. Big Lou will answer your call and work to fit you into a term life policy that you can afford. Remember, Big Lou's like you. He's on meds too. Call 800-200-1966 or biglou.com.
You're listening to WCPT 820. Here's the latest Chicago weather update.
I'm meteorologist Ray Miller from the Weatherology Weather Center. A chance of scattered showers and storms tonight with a low temperature of 63 and southwest winds at 5 to 10. Thursday, chance of thunderstorms with a high temperature of 75 and winds out of the northwest at 5 to 15 miles an hour. Friday, plenty of sunshine with a high temperature around 68 degrees. Saturday, sunshine with a high temperature of 71. Sunday, plenty of sun with a high around 74. That's the latest Chicago weather update. Right now, it's 75.
This is Chicago's Progressive Talk, 820 AM, WCPT Willow Springs, and online at WCPT820.com, where facts matter.
Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive. Filling in today for Joan, Chicago media personality, John St. Augustine.
Glad to be with you on WCPT. I am sitting in for Joan. She will be back in this slot tomorrow. As I mentioned at the top of the hour when I came in at 2 o'clock, 90 minutes ago or so, that this is the 28th anniversary of my first broadcast in 1997, August 27th, 1997. I will never forget how this all transpired. You can go read it in my books if you want the long version, but the short version was after I was living in this motel in Upper Michigan, thought my life was over basically, and I had this epiphany about going on the radio. I had no training. I was 37. What's the point? I started literally calling radio stations from the hotel in my underwear out of the phone book. There was no such thing as internet at that point running amok. And so I went through the whole list, and I finally got down to a little CBS affiliate, WDBC, in the bustling metropolis of Escanaba, Michigan, in the UP of the Wolverine State. And the woman, Alice Sabuco, was the GM, and she said, "Oh, yeah, I read about you. You're the crazy guy that walked from the UP to Chicago. What do you want to talk about?" And I said, "Well, here's my idea for a show. I want to talk about stuff. My politics and my religion and my sports teams are not helping me move forward in life. I should be further along than I am. I want to talk about stuff that really matters. I want to try and find some common sense during these uncommon times and make sense out of the senseless if at all possible." And she said, "Okay, well, come on and let's talk." So we went into the station and talked and set up a meeting for about a week later with the owner of the station. He comes to me and says, "So what is this you want to do?" And I gave him the same spiel. And he said, "Listen, this is a CBS affiliate. We don't just let anybody walk in here and do a radio show." I'm like, "Well, whatever." He said, "So what do you want from me?" And I said, "Well, I want a year's contract," because I'd never done anything. So I'm from Chicago. We say a year's contract, I'll figure it out. And he said, "Son, you're not going to make 5 shows. I will give you 1 hour on a Wednesday for 5 weeks in a row. And it starts August 27th, which was been the following week after this meeting." And he said, "But you're not going to make it." I mean, I had no training. I had nothing except this thought that I'm supposed to do this. And I remember saying to him, first of all, don't call me your son, because I'm not. Secondly, I just walked from the UP to Chicago and back, so don't tell me I can't do anything. And third, in a year, you're going to wish you gave me that contract. I was talking right out of my backside. And so August 27th, 1997, I walked into the little CBS affiliate. Charles Osgood was doing his deal. And all they told me was, when the little hand gets to the top of the hour, you better be off the air. So CBS is coming in. And somehow I got 5 more shows and 5 more shows, and the rest, as they say, is radio history. And the reason I bring this up, not only to remind myself that I have come a long way since WDBC. I mean, they didn't even have a way to talk to guests. I would take the telephone, turn it upside down, and put it next to the microphone to talk to. Yeah, it was pretty rudimentary. But I met a guy a few years later when I was at Oprah Radio. Actually, it was a pretty interesting way that we connected. But I come to find out through some great connections that Dan Mason was the president and CEO of CBS Radio. And he and I connected in 2014, 2015, somewhere in there with the original Play Died It podcast platform CBS was building. And I did shows for them and worked on some of the product for them. And we've stayed in touch all this time. And one of the great, I guess, accomplishments in my 28-year radio career with the whole moniker of bringing people together was a program we did called The Bridge in 2020, which we'll talk about here in a few minutes. But in all of that, and past all of that, I've always been such enamored with Dan Mason's presence. He's a guy that comes from the background of just dropping needles on records when they were vinyl, which is a big deal. There's a lot of dinosaurs that are gone. He's still around. And his common sense approach to radio and success in business has always been like, this is how you do it. When I think of success in radio, I think of Dan Mason, and he joins me this afternoon. Hey, Dan.
Son,
I'm very proud of you.
Okay, Pop, thanks.
I couldn't resist that.
Yeah.
You're doing great, John. How are you doing?
I'm doing really good. As you heard, this is 28 years, and I don't believe where all that time went, but I got to tell you, some of the best years that I've been in this business was you and I working together on projects. And I mentioned the bridge, which was a really lofty idea and project we did from 20 to 21. Can you kind of explain that a little bit?
Yeah, we were doing a radio. We had a radio station here in Washington, an AM station, and we were doing business with China Radio International. They've been on the station for 26 years. I bought it in 2019. And about sometime around late 19, maybe, they came to us, the Chinese did, and said, you know what we want to try. And this, John, this was before all the you-know-what hit the fan, but with COVID and all that. But they said, we got an idea. We think we'd like to have a show where you guys have a host and we'll have a host over here in Beijing, and we'll talk back and forth. And we thought, okay, I'm sitting there freaking out, wondering who I'm going to get to do this. And, your name came up, and you were the absolute perfect person to do this. And then, of course, we went through terrible technical issues on how to get this right, because you're talking to somebody halfway across the world.
Yeah.
So that we went through that, but you know what? We overcame everything, and we had a year's worth of just the best shows. That it's too bad we don't own them. The Chinese own them. CRI owns them. But to hear those shows again about matching cultures, and we realize that we're all the same type of people. I mean, we have families, we have needs, we have goals, we have parents, we have grandparents, we eat food, we drive cars, we live in houses, and we're all the same. We politically, obviously, we're way different, but it was a blending of cultures that I got to tell you that I learned a lot about the Chinese culture in that year, and I think they learned a lot about our culture. So it was just a win-win all the way around. And the most fun part is when we begin to exchange music.
Yes.
On the Music Monday, and the Chinese girls would hear some of our rock or whatever we were playing, whatever you played, and we would hear the strangest stuff coming out of China.
Yeah.
That, oh my gosh, I would never fly on any American radio station in any kind of a rotation.
Yeah,
it was great.
It was great, and one thing that made it great, and in this business, it's kind of what have you done for me lately. Because you could have, everybody goes through cycles in every aspect of radio. And I was coming at a time where I was, coming out of doing some independent stuff and things like that. And I thought, gosh, I really miss doing radio, like what I'm doing today. This is live radio, right? There's an energy and a something about doing things like that, the immediacy of it. And when you called me about this, I absolutely knew this was the right thing to do. It spoke to everything I believe is true about bringing people together, not pushing them apart. When you have conversation, you learn. And when you learn, you're less biased. And when you're less biased, lives can change. I think that's kind of, and you've been someone who's, and I learned this from you, that radio is all about companionship. You've always touted that.
Over and over through all the years, going all the way back to day one in radio, it's been researched over and over that companionship is the number one reason that people listen to the radio.
Yeah, and whether you're in Beijing or Baltimore, it was the same response. And I'll never forget our co-host. We had Hu Young was who I started with. She spoke better English than I do. She's highly educated, and I just right out of the gate, the two of us talking, two professionals. I had great respect for her. And then Bebe came along, our little radical, who liked to shake the branch a lot. And they switched places a little bit. About halfway through the run, they flip-flopped, and Hey Young had to take a step aside. Bebe jumped in. But the thing that I learned from them is that, and Bebe would tell me this or send me messages, that while most of the people in Beijing listening did not understand English, they understand what you just said, which is companionship. They knew that Bebe and I were talking and that we were friends. And the thing about it, Dan, well, I'm on Facebook Live here on WCPT. We never saw each other. I was adamant that we had to not see each other like a Zoom call 7,000 miles apart, but we need to just talk to each other and listen. And people picked up on it no matter where they lived in the world.
Oh, it's a great experiment. It was kind of sad that it went away after a year, and there were political reasons for that. But we had a great run. That year was a great run, and I think we both. The number one thing I learned was when the Chinese girls were talking. Ms. Su Young that said it. That kids in China learned English from "Take Me Home, Country Roads" by John Denver.
That's right.
That's how they learned English, and it was the most popular song on every karaoke machine in as far as the English versions of any song there was. And that was a great lesson. And there was one other thing, that Hillary Vaughn lady that you had on.
Yes.
She crystallized something for me, that if you would approach, or we would approach everything that we go about with an open mind and not preconceived ideas or perceptions, that our minds would open up and we would learn a lot more. And I think we both, John, carried that theme all the way through the show.
Amen. And, before we jump into some of this Cracker Barrel stuff, because one of the main reasons I asked you to come on, just not only to have this conversation about radio, but also this Cracker Barrel thing, which is friggin' hilarious to me. But you made some great points. I'll get to that in a second. I want people to know and hear from you a little bit how a guy goes from being, a 27-year-old kid who's one of the youngest GMs in the United States to the big chair, not once but twice at CBS. And, most of those chairs are filled by salespeople, right? I mean, it's usually all about sales drives everything, but you never did that really at the local level or at the regional level. You were all about the content and the programming because you did it yourself, and that took you to the top. Is that right?
Yeah. I mean, you're correct. I never sold a day locally in my life, but I had the ability. I mean, maybe it's God-given, but I cherish the talents that I do have. But I have the ability to get ratings. I can get ratings when maybe other people can't. I mean, not on the air with me talking, but to direct people and to program what is good radio. And I got paid for that, and I got paid handsomely for that. And it's just so happened that during my tenure, the second time, Les Moonves, who is CEO of CBS Corporation, he's a big product guy himself, having created all the shows that he did. So he wanted a product guy to run CBS Radio, and it worked out terrifically for me. I had a great 8-year run the second time, and 12 years the first time through Westinghouse and CBS. That couldn't have asked for a better ride, honestly.
This is coming from a guy who, when he was 12, 13, 14 years old, was writing notes and letters to program directors telling them how to run their lineup, and he'd never been in the radio studio in his life. So this is the kind of audacity that Dan Mason brings to things. We're going to take a short break, come back, and talk. We're going to actually take David's call in a little bit. Is he in San Francisco? No kidding. We'll talk to David in just a couple minutes about some changes in radio, plus we'll get to this Cracker Barrel stuff. We're listening to WCPT right here at 8:20 a.m., and we'll be back with more right after this.
When it comes to banking, you need a bank you can trust. A bank with a rock-solid reputation and the highest integrity. A bank that gives you the attention and respect you deserve.
ABOC first opened its doors in downtown Chicago in 1922, and we've made our name on deep expertise, best-in-class service, and a strong commitment to our customers. We know the Chicago business market inside and out and can help you craft the perfect banking solution, no matter what type of business you're in.
And if you're looking for a banking partner for your labor union, we can bring the type of expertise that only comes from a bank that was founded by labor unions and still has union employees and shareholders to this day.
Whether you need a deposit account, loan, trust services, or investment management, ABOC has you covered. Let's work together to manage your finances today while planning for a better tomorrow. ABOC, a bank built on a strong foundation.
Visit aboc.com to learn more. Member FDIC.
Listen up, fellow timeshare owners. If you're a timeshare owner and you want out at all costs, you're done. Frustrated, tired of wasting money, you don't use the darn thing. Get out now. Hire the best Bulldog timeshare cancellation team in the business. Their in-house legal team, headed by a timeshare cancellation lawyer, can help you fight the biggest and baddest companies out there that sell timeshare. At some point, you were using your timeshare, but now you're not, and you're tired of wasting money. Before you go to the poorhouse, Call right now and learn how you can stop the maintenance fees and put more money back in your pocket. Their services cost you a lot less than you think, and you'll save a lot of money over time. Call the Timeshare Exit Hotline now. It's a free consultation.
800-296-0150. 800-296-0150. 800-296-0150. That's 800-296-0150.
Alexa, play WCPT.
WCPT from TuneIn.
Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive. Filling in today for Joan, Chicago media personality, John St. Augustine.
Dan Mason is joining me, and we're talking about radio stuff and all that. We have a couple calls on hold, Dan, but one of the texts that came in said, "Hey, John, why do you think your show worked so well at this radio station in Upper Michigan when you started?" The only thing I can think of is what Bill Curtis from A&E, there was someone in his office that had to review tapes of every interview he did, and I would send the cassette tapes, literally mail them to Chicago so they could review them for content. And she said, "I think you're the only man I've ever heard on radio not talking about sports or politics." And it was like a revelation to them that somebody would talk about other than that, some life stuff or whatever you want to call it. That, and I think the fact that I had nothing to lose. I don't, you get to a certain point, you kind of don't care what people think one way or the other, and I had my back against the wall, and they gave me a microphone, and I knew I was supposed to do this, and I just wanted to use it, Dan, as we did in the bridge, to bring people together, not separate them. And yet in radio, separating people into little piles and selling them things is kind of the way it's supposed to go, right?
Well, it goes by demographics, and they slice and dice your audience. That it's got a million different ways that it can be cut up. But unfortunately, it doesn't really get sold as one big basket. Unfortunately, but you have done a tremendous job connecting to people. And I got to tell you something else, and it goes all the way back to when I heard you first on Sirius XM on when you're talking about the baseball show. But I believe I have the ability to instantly hear talent. I can listen to 100 tapes, and I will pick out the 1, 2, or 3 that are going to be hits on the radio. Just like in music, I program music stations. When it's a hit, you know it. And you can hear talk shows, you can hear personalities, and when you hear that, you instantly know it. And that's the way I feel about you.
Well, I appreciate that. We're going to go to the calls. We're going to take David, who's calling in from San Francisco, California. He's talking about changes in radio. David, welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks, John. Yeah, and I didn't catch your guest's name, but
Dan Mason.
Greetings. Yeah, hey, Dan. Yeah, I was going to raise the changes in radio. I got my first third-class radio telephone with a broadcast endorsement 53 years ago. I was 15 years old, and when I did, we basically pledged that we would not steer the public wrong with innuendos or with bad information, that we would not use the radio as a subversion, as a technique for steering the public wrong. And when I heard Rush Limbaugh years later just basically lying, and I asked about did he actually have a third-class license? And it turns out he didn't, and he was considered an entertainer. And so there was no pledge that he wouldn't lie. There was no pledge that he wouldn't steer the public wrong, and that he was considered entertainment. And how he ended up with 600 stations is, well, that's a whole layer that if you want to get into. The other thing I was going to ask about was during Clinton, when Rupert Murdoch was making his way into America, he basically tricked America into forcing the news departments to make a profit. And when I started 50 years ago, the news department was considered a public service, and that they were that was an aspect of the FCC license, that the license holders had to provide a certain amount of PSAs. and a certain amount of public good, and the news was a part of that, the weather and whatnot. And then finally, the idea that these people who are these vicious entertainers, I can't even imagine setting my radio on the alarm clock and waking up to the nasty sneers, the morning sneer, and you're bound to have a bad day when you end up with somebody that's constantly doing a diatribe of evil and lies. So those are some of the major changes that I've noticed in the 50 years.
All right, Dave, thanks for the phone call. Dan, response?
Well, first of all, thank you, Dave, for your questions and comments. But, John, I have one of those third-class licenses, too. Or I had one.
Yeah.
And we were taught back then that we broadcast in the public interest, convenience, and necessity. That was the mantra that the FCC put out there. And we lived by that. I mean, I went all through college with that, went through my early years in radio with that, and somehow as deregulation came along the way, it kind of got lost a little bit, and, you would hear different aspects of programming, and the PSA rule got dropped where public service announcements, you didn't have to do that much anymore, and the news content got cut. But things changed, and time changed, and people changed. And so, it's hard to compare it to 50 years ago because so much is different now.
And, I got to say that you're right. A lot of it has changed, and as expansion took over and there was more and more stations, you put on people that are going to gather an audience for good, bad, or worse. And that, that's where we're at now. And I think, to me, and one of the things I've learned a lot from you is it's all about balance, right? I mean, for you to stick your neck out, quite frankly, and your partners to do that show, even though China Radio International has been on the American airwaves for 25, 26 years, that was a risk that you guys took to put us together. We got a lot of hate mail. We got a lot of blowback, but we did it anyway. And I think that, to me, was the opposite of what he was talking about. Just because there's a lot of what going on, there's also a lot of really good programming out there. I know you're a huge proponent of live and local, right, Dan?
I am.
Well, you can expand more than that.
Well, I am, very much so, because if you go back to the companionship idea, sure. I mean, people want to be entertained. They want to feel secure. They want to know the weather from their locality. You have an opportunity to be a friend, and that's what people listen for. And sure, they're going to be nationally syndicated shows, John, that are going to be popular. Matter of fact, I could only name maybe 3 of them. I think I've got as you well know, we've got a book coming out next year, and the 3 that come to mind are Arthur Godfrey, and there was Howard Stern. I mean, there's 4, really, Rush Limbaugh and Dr. Laura. Those and anything else, it's kind of hit or miss, really. Yeah. It's not a national situation, but local lives. And there's nothing better than a radio station in a town that is just eaten up with localism. And you see this in medium and smaller markets. Oh, there's plenty of those that do that. They carry their high school games, and they carry their they even broadcast school menus. Okay, maybe you don't like that, but you got somebody trying their best to be a companion.
One of my favorite things to do when I drive north to visit my family in the beautiful Upper Peninsula of Michigan is I listen to the local radio all the way up. I turn off satellite. And a shout out to WDOR, Door County's finest. And they read the obituaries. They read about whose dog is lost. They go right through all the news and stuff, and it is so personal. They will always have that place.
That's amazing. I mean, it's wonderful. That's what radio was born to do.
That's right. So we have about 5 minutes to go, and I want to jump into this Cracker Barrel debacle, Dan. So this is one of those.
I was hoping I could be on for the whole hour.
We could do a whole hour, that's for sure. But the Cracker Barrel thing here is fascinating to me. First of all, to me, and this is me personally, I mentioned at the top of the hour when I came on at 2 o'clock, I've been to Cracker Barrel maybe 50, 100 times in my life. I don't care what the sign looks like. I just care that the fried catfish is the same, the dumplings are the same, and I could buy my retro candy. I don't care about the rest of it. Apparently they do. There are people that already get connected to this stuff. And these are the things, there's 2 pieces of this to me. The first piece is because you've been in these meetings where you're getting pitched that we got to change this or do this. You were in the big chair, and probably a lot of these decisions came down to your say-so one way or the other. But I learned that, and I don't know if you heard this, but Cracker Barrel paid 3 consulting firms a total of $700 million to come up with that logo. It looks like an 8-year-old drew it. And, of course, that's all out the windows. They've already totally reversed their decision, and they're going back with the good old Uncle Herschel sitting next to the keg there, and people are happy again. So, first of all, from a perspective of a CEO having to make a decision, your thoughts on that process when somebody goes, and I think she's a fairly new CEO to the company. Yeah, we'll fork out $700 million. We'll change the logo, and nobody's going to know. And yet, we live in a world of unsocial media where everybody knows everything. Your thoughts?
Well, first of all, I mean, when I looked at this story, I was amazed how the media just lapped it up like a big dog. I mean, they were all over this. And you're talking about a company just changing around things on their logo. That's not going to make them any more revenue.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not going to, but and then I think, could this lady be so devious that she's planning this?
Uh-huh.
And I thought, no, she couldn't do that. But at the end of the day, she got millions. I can't even imagine what the number is, but it's on every network. And this morning, it was the second story right behind Taylor Swift. And it's still there. And I'm just fascinated by it, that it means nothing really, because it doesn't change the food. It doesn't change the restaurant. I mean, it's like the radio station, John. It says, oh, let's change the logo, and we're going to go to the top. No, it doesn't work like that. It comes out of the speakers.
Yeah.
And what works for Cracker Barrel is going to come out of the kitchen or else the restaurant. So I think if I were running Cracker Barrel, I'll tell you a couple of things that I would do. First of all, I'm not going to give any research company $700 million. I'm not going to do that because they're operating on a 1.5% profit margin right now.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not in the cards. I might give them $700,000, but
right.
$700 million.
Dan, they could have gave me $700,000. I'd say keep the logo the same and cash the check.
Yeah. So I'm the CEO of Cracker Barrel, and you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to get in my car, and I'm going to drive around. I'm going to start driving around. I don't need to hit a million of them. I can get a sample size of 20 restaurants, and I'll know what to do. And I'll just sit down and talk to people. I said, if I change the logos, is that going to make you come over here more and eat more? No, of course not. And I'm going to find out what they like on the menu, what they don't like on the menu. And then I'm going to realize that I'm not going to get the Gen Z. I don't think Gen Z goes to restaurants anymore. Now that's pretty bold for me to say that, but I do believe it. It's all they're with DoorDash now. They don't go to any restaurants.
Right.
So now I'm going to say, what could I do to get people into Cracker Barrel and create a new generation of restaurant patrons? So I'm going to come up with this program called Kids Eat for Free. And I'm going to design this kids menu, not a big one, abbreviated somewhat. And you come in with your family and your kids eat free. And it's not going to cost that much. It sure as hell would have costed, or pardon my French, it sure as heck would have costed a lot less than $700 million to do that program.
My God.
So that would generate possibly the next generation of Cracker Barrel patrons and fans. Because, John, it was my parents that took me in first.
Yep.
And probably, I don't know many years they've been there, but probably somebody's grandparents took them in. I don't know.
Yeah.
But we passed the torch. That's how we did it, and that's the way it should be. Word of mouth, pass the torch. Now, having said that, one more thing.
Hang on.
I do.
You're going to give me that one more thing after the news.
Okay, fine.
Not like telling the former CBS president to hold on for a second. We'll be back with more on WCPT with Dan Mason right after the top of the hour news.
Are you looking to hire? ZipRecruiter finds the best candidate for your job fast. Try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/free. That's ZipRecruiter.com/free.
AP News, I'm Ben Thomas. In Minneapolis, a gunman fired through the windows of a Catholic church this morning as children were celebrating Mass during the first week of school. Minneapolis Police Chief Brian O'Hara says 2 children, ages 8 and 10, were killed, 17 people wounded, including 14 children.
The coward that shot these victims took his own life in the rear of the church. That coward has been identified as 23-year-old Robin Westman. No prior criminal history. As to the weapons used to perpetrate this horrific attack, there was a rifle, a shotgun, and a pistol. All 3 had been lawfully purchased by the shooter.
The shooter's motive is under investigation, and O'Hara says,
We're also aware of a manifesto that the shooter had timed to be released on YouTube. This manifesto appeared to show him at the scene and included some disturbing writings. That content has since been taken down with the assistance of the FBI, and it now remains under active review by our investigators.
In other news, Israeli and U.S. officials are to meet in Washington today to discuss post-war Gaza. The meeting comes as Israel's military calls the evacuation of Gaza City inevitable ahead of a new offensive. A top Florida official says the state-run immigration detention facility in the Everglades, known as Alligator Alcatraz, will likely be empty in a matter of days. That's in an email exchange shared with the AP. At the same time, Governor Ron DeSantis' administration is fighting a federal judge's order to shutter the facility by a late October deadline. The Food and Drug Administration's approved updated COVID-19 vaccines for the coming fall and winter season. And stocks edged higher again. The S&P rose 0.2% to close at a new all-time high. The Nasdaq also rose 0.2, while the Dow gained 0.3. This is AP News. Amid President Trump's crime and immigration crackdown in the nation's capital, the Trump administration is now taking control of Washington's Union Station from Amtrak. Haya Panjwani has details.
Union Station serves as the main transportation hub in Washington. It's another example of how the federal government is exerting its power over the nation's capital. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy said that President Trump is pretty clear about what he wants for Amtrak and public transit.
He wants Union Station to be beautiful again. He wants transit to be safe again, and he wants our nation's capital to be great again. And today is part of that.
Duffy echoed the Republican president who said last week he wants $2 billion from Congress to beautify Washington as part of his crackdown on the city. National Guard troops have been on patrol inside and outside of Union Station after Trump launched the anti-crime effort earlier this month. Haya Panjwani, Washington.
There's more news at apnews.com. I'm Ben Thomas. Thanks for listening.
This is 8:20 a.m. WCPT Willow Springs and streaming worldwide at WCPT820.com. We are Chicago's progressive talk, where facts matter. Now your WCPT 820 weather update.
I'm meteorologist Ray Miller from the Weatherology Weather Center. A chance of scattered showers and storms tonight with a low temperature of 63 and southwest winds at 5 to 10. Thursday, chance of thunderstorms with a high temperature of 75 and winds out of the northwest at 5 to 15 miles an hour. Friday, plenty of sunshine with a high temperature around 68 degrees. Saturday, sunshine with a high temperature of 71. Sunday, plenty of sun with a high around 74. That's the latest Chicago weather update. Right now, it's 75.
Remember when you get to work to hop over to WCPT820.com or the TuneIn Radio app and stream The Stephanie Miller Show. Weekdays 8 to 11 a.m. on Chicago's Progressive Talk, where facts matter. Chicago's Progressive Talk, WCPT 820, where facts matter.
Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive. Filling in today for Joan, Chicago media personality, John St. Augustine.
When I wrap up here in just about less than an hour, Patty Vasquez is going to come in and drive it home as she always does. She'll be joined by co-host Dwayne Kennedy, and their guests today are Colin Allred, the former congressman who's running currently for U.S. Senate in Texas against Republicans John Cronin and Ken Paxton, and car guy Tom Appel, the host of the Consumer Guide Car Stuff podcast. Dan Mason is with me. He was the former CEO and president of CBS Radio. This is a guy, you know, steeped in the vinyl, man. He was dropping the needle back in the day when they really used vinyl records. So he has come from the bottom to the very top, and we're talking about the changes in radio, things like that. But the main focus here, as we were getting ready to wrap up, was this whole thing with Cracker Barrel, which to me is a non-story, but whatever, we're talking about it. Your third point, Dan, was what?
The third point was it isn't going to be about logo changes, never. Just like, and there's a lot of similarities to radio. It's going to be about the product, and it's going to be about the people who serve the product. And that's what it's all about. It's not going to be the logo. It's insignificant. It's a big story because it's getting a lot of attention, but it doesn't matter.
No. Just real quick before I cut you loose, you know, so you've been in the big chair, the CEO chair, and have to make certain decisions and do certain things and deal with a board. And from what I've been reading from this non-story that's now a story, that, you know, some of the board people said, don't do this. They were outvoted for whatever reason. But, I mean, I just think there's a common sense piece here. I've never been in that type of situation, but at much lower levels, I would have to raise my hand and go, not a good idea. Don't do this. You're going to catch your you-know-what on this if you do it. So have you been in that position?
Oh, yes. If you recall, WCBS FM changed from a long-time oldies format to a jack format, which the jack format, for people who aren't in the radio business, it's just more music with a couple of drop-in voices. But WCBS FM was heavy, heavy personality. I was not there when that change was made. I was right in the middle. I came back. 2 months into when I came back, I changed it back to WCBS FM with the classic hits and the oldies. And, boy, the outpouring of love came right away. And I knew. And I tell you what, John, I'll leave you with this. I was wringing my hands just like I always do over things that I got to get done. And I walked into a diner in New York City one morning, and we were still playing Jack. And I've only been there in a job about 6 weeks maybe. And behind the diner was this big boombox, and it had all the songs on there that WCBS FM played. And I thought, this has got to be done. So I called up the people there, and I said, send me over your jingle package. I want to hear the old WCBS jingles. Mm-hmm. And they did. And I heard them, and I said, we're going back. Nothing. Just there's no more conversation. We're going back. And they did, and they did the right thing. But it's not about, but we never changed the logo. I mean, the Jack logo was there, but when we brought it back, it was the same logo that had been there before Jack. It wasn't about the logo. It was about the music and the people who played the music. And here it's about the product, the food, and the people who serve the food. So there you go. That's my 2 cents. I'm sticking to it.
I got 3 more minutes for you. You got to tell the Taylor Swift story because she just got married apparently to some tight end from the Kansas City Chiefs. And I love your story about when you ran into Tay-Tay back in the day.
Yeah, she was 14 years old, and I had just come back to CBS for the second time. This would have been 2007. And I went to awards, which is American Women in Radio and Television dinner. It was an awards dinner, and they had Taylor there as the artist that was going to play a few songs. And I had heard of her briefly, but I really didn't know who she was. And so the people came up to me and said, listen, you're going to sit next to Taylor and her mother. They're going to be at your table. I said, okay, all right, okay. I'm new to this. Okay, I'll show up. So they come, they sit down. And Taylor never hardly lifted her head the whole night. She was just looking down at her plate. And her mother was very friendly. I mean, they were very friendly,
sure.
But I'm sitting there. I'm squirming in my chair. I thought, what in the world am I going to talk to this 14-year-old girl about? How's Matt, Taylor? How's that? Yeah. And I was so uncomfortable. And then she got up graciously and played her 2 songs, and everybody clapped, and that was it. But that was my initial encounter with Taylor. And little did I know, I would be sitting next to a billion-dollar superstar.
It just goes to show you.
Cool.
I had a similar experience at the Gracie Awards in 2007. And we were all there for the Oprah thing, and Gene Chatsky won the first Gracie Award. It was a big deal. I wore a tuxedo. I looked pretty good, I got to tell you. So we're at this whole dinner and the whole thing, and this woman, young girl, walks out. It had to be around the same time, and she gets on stage while we're all eating dinner, and she's singing. And I'm thinking, whose kid is this? Where'd they get this kid from? Long hair, same thing, very shy, very unassuming, looking down at a guitar, very nice, kind of a country singer, and that was it. And it wasn't until maybe 2-3 years later, I was going through a bunch of old papers, and I found the program from the Gracie Awards, and it said Entertainment by Taylor Swift. The next thing I'm like, wait a minute, this is the same one that's went on the American Music Awards? I don't know what happened. I don't know I don't know what happened, but it happened. And so here they are now. She's a billionaire. He's a millionaire. They're the couple of the universe. I hope it all turns out well for him.
Yeah, I give him my best wishes too, John.
There you go. Dan, so good to talk to you. I appreciate you sharing the air with me today, buddy.
Happy to come on anytime.
Got it. Thanks very much. Off you go.
Take care.
Yep. I'm going to jump to Steve real quick before I can take his call, and then John Barry's going to be calling here in about 5 minutes. Steve on the Gold Coast.
Hello, yes.
Hey,
so I wanted to make a few points. Hello, yes. Thank you for taking my call.
You're
so I wanted
welcome.
to make a few points. And I've been in consulting a long time, and no, they didn't actually write somebody a check for an idea to rebrand in the amount of $700 million. So that included changing their menu and redoing their restaurants, over 600 restaurants. That's all part of that $700 million.
So redoing how, Steve? Do you know?
Apparently to clean it up, to make a more efficient use of space from what I've read, that sort of thing. But that's all inclusive of this. I mean, nobody ever got $700 million for a rebranding idea.
But here's the question. Did they take the catfish off the menu? Because that's a deal breaker for me.
Yeah, I mean, and by the way, I mean, if they need to rebrand anything, it's the fact that if you like MMA fighting, I mean, just go to Crazy Barrel anytime after midnight on a weekend.
That's right.
That's pretty much what you're going to find. But and having said that, I was hoping that I could get on with your previous guest, and that I'm a BMW guy, so I took mine in to get serviced a while back ago, and they gave me an X3. I drive an X5, and the thing had no AM radio.
What?
And I mean, that's been a big move now in the automobile sector. The question of whether they can just discontinue AM entirely, because apparently it's just a lot of people are doing the whole satellite radio, and then other people listen to FM. But apparently there isn't much of an audience for AM. I'm an AM guy, but in Chicago, there's a lot of great content on AM.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently not enough around the country any longer to warrant it being in cars. So I'm wondering, I mean, this was one car. I'm not sure whether it's long-term or anything like that.
Well, the thing that comes to mind are two things, actually. When I went from AM radio, where I started, over to satellite, I thought, who in the world's going to pay to listen to friggin' radio? Why would you pay a subscription to listen to satellite radio? I mean, come on. It made zero sense to me, Steve. And when I got over there, and I actually went to the headquarters in D.C., at that time, Sirius and XM were two separate companies. We were with XM, and I went in there, and I thought, this is like Star Trek. I mean, they had a whole wall of tubes and pictures and screens, and there was a guy sitting in the chair like Captain Kirk, like looking at all this stuff and figuring out what goes where, and I thought, this is AM's, this is going to kill it. On the other hand, just as I mentioned, driving up to Michigan, I'm listening to all these great local radio stations, and that's how they're backbone of the community type thing. So, well, yeah, I would imagine there may be some of that going on. It could happen. I'm with you. I think whether it's WCPT or any other AM station, they're missing out if they don't include it.
Yeah, and the other part of this discussion is, even if you could reinstate, say, the fairness doctrine, other sorts of things that would balance out the system, the reality is that only applies to public airwaves.
That's correct.
Whether it's television or radio. And the fact is that this country has shifted away from that. People get their news off cable TV or from streaming services, and they are under no obligation to provide you with any kind of fairness. They never were.
Right, 100%. You're 100%. Thanks for the clarification. That is 100% accurate. And I learned early on, Dan talked about Howard Stern, Rush Limbaugh, and Dr. Laura, Arthur Godfrey, very different personalities. Some of them, maybe some similarities, but not much, except they're behind a microphone. When I first moved from the CBS affiliate to the Radio Results Network, which was an ABC affiliate, I replaced Dr. Laura like in 25 or 30 stations. It just happened. It was a programming thing. I had no decision over it. I got more. It's the first time I was telling Lady B a little while ago, I got hate mail, and I thought, what have I gotten myself into? All I'm doing is showing up, trying to do something I think is good to do and benefits people and have a conversation. And the worst vitriol you ever, and people, these are physical letters somebody took time to sit down and write. I thought, this is different. I got to really be careful here. Not what I say, but how I respond to this. And I never really did. And there was one, never forget this. One woman, she would send letters every week saying, I used to love what you do, but you're a blasphemer because you said that Jesus Christ smoked cigars. I said, wait, what? And so I had my producer go back and listen to the tapes and do all this different stuff. And what it was is that Limbaugh was on from noon to 3. I was on from 3 to 6, and he was a prodigious cigar smoker. He's an aficionado. And he said, Jesus, that was a great cigar I had last night. She attributed to me, and no matter what we did, I could not convince her that Limbaugh, she was a disciple of Limbaugh, would ever say anything like that, but I did. It was fascinating to me. Human condition, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, this is your field, and obviously you know this without my saying, and that that radio stations in terms of ratings and so forth, it's great that people love you, but what's almost as good as people who love you listen daily, people who hate you
100%, brother. And I would always come back and say, if they hate me, why do they keep listening and sending these letters? And there's a couple redeeming qualities, or I should say, events that took place. One time, make a very long story short, I donated a kidney to my daughter in 2002, and I literally ran out of gas. I donated a kidney in July. I was on the air. I came back. I just couldn't do it anymore. I had to take a break. And so I decided to go off the air. And for a whole year and a half prior to that, every Friday I would get an email from a guy quoting scripture, telling me I'm leading people to the burning lake of hell. Every wrong thing in the world was my fault, blah, blah, blah. And when I pulled off the show and I was done, it was a New Year's Eve on 2002. I finished my last third hour. I'm by myself in the building. There's a knock at my office door, and this guy shows up, and he's got all these, pins on and stuff. And can I help you? He goes, "Are you John?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Can I come in and talk to you?" I said, "Are you armed? I mean, what's going on here?" He said, "No, I'm the guy that's been sending you those emails all the time." And I thought, "Are you kidding me? I don't need this." He said, "No, let me explain." He came in and sat down, and for an hour, this guy said, "I'm finally starting to understand what you're talking about. I've been so steeped in this upbringing that I had that I couldn't understand how I was connected to what you were saying and in relation to what I was taught. And I'm finally starting to learn to think for myself." And I said, "Well, that's good, but I'm done. So you got from here, you're on your own." And that's how that went. So it does happen. I may not hear about it all the time, but 28 years later, it's all been worth it, Steve. I can tell you that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and we live in a world today in which, confirmation bias governs everything. Yep. So, I mean, if you dare to threaten somebody's existing belief system, then you're the enemy. Yep. And, there are people I know in media who, at one point in their lives or another, their company hired private security for them.
Sure.
Because that's how bad it got. And, and it's unfortunate. This is a free society, for God's sakes. You don't have to agree with me. But the idea that you're going to threaten my life because you don't agree with me is ridiculous.
Absolutely. Steve, I always appreciate the call. Thanks very much. We'll take a short time out. We're going to wait to get John Barry on here, talk a little bit about his music and his work and his life. He'll be at Hey Nonny in Arlington Heights on the 12th of September. It's a Friday evening, 7:30, and we'll discuss that and more right after this.
Dive deeper into the heart of the news and stories at WCPT 820 and across the Midwest by checking out our website, heartlandsignal.com.
It's the coverage I can count on every time.
For the latest news updates, in-depth analysis, compelling stories, comprehensive election coverage, live streams, and thought-provoking opinions, head to heartlandsignal.com.
When I need to know, they're there.
They keep me informed and updated wherever I am.
Stay informed with WCPT 820, your go-to source for where facts matter.
Excuse me, miss. Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Can you recommend a bank that offers a full suite of commercial banking products along with excellent service?
Yes, ABOC.
What about a bank that has been in Chicago for more than 100 years and really understands the local business climate?
ABOC.
But I manage a labor union. Can you recommend a bank that really understands how labor unions operate and what banking products they need?
Again, ABOC. ABOC first opened its doors in downtown Chicago in 1922 and understands the local business climate better than anyone. ABOC was founded by labor unions and still has union employees and shareholders today. So they really understand how unions tick and how their needs may be different. But whether you're with a labor union or another type of business, whether you're large or small or something in between, ABOC will always make you feel like you're their most important customer. Visit ABOC.com to learn more.
Wow, thank you, random person on the street. I'm going to visit ABOC.com today.
Member FDIC.
WCPT Replay.
Former Illinois Congressman Joe Walsh is here. Have you had any conversations with Republicans currently in Congress? Because what I found during Trump's first term is that I would talk to Republicans and they would toe the party line publicly. And then once the cameras were off and once the mics were shut off, it would be like, oh, my God, I can't believe this guy. This is horrible. This is awful.
It's still the same, Joan, but the scarier aspect is, whereas 7 years ago when I publicly came out against Trump, every one of my former Republican colleagues privately said, Joe, I agree with you, but I can't say that. But the number of true believing Trumpers now in the House and the Senate has really increased, and America needs to know that.
Keep listening to WCPT 820, because facts matter.
Chicago's Progressive Talk, WCPT 820, where facts matter.
Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive. Filling in today for Joan, Chicago media personality, John St. Augustine.
I am sitting in for Joan. She'll be back in this slot tomorrow. As I mentioned 3 or 4 times during my stint here this afternoon since 2 o'clock, this is the 28th anniversary of the very first radio show that I ever did back at little WDBC Radio on August 27th, 1997. At night, they would turn the power down, close the building off because the squirrels had to go on vacation. It was the wattage was that low. Obviously, things have changed a lot over the years, but a year before that, my life was very different. I was living in a motel. I was in major transition in my life, and I thought I had failed at just about everything I had done up to that point. I was 37. I'm a veteran. I got a college degree. What am I doing in this circumstance? And I remember one evening I got up really late at night, probably 11, 12 o'clock, and I just needed to turn on TV and watch something and get my mind off stuff. And there was this new thing, I believe country music television was just emerging, or some video show was on. And this guy gets up and he starts singing these songs. And I'm thinking, who in the world is this guy? And in short order, I found out it was John Barry, who's been active as a recording artist since 1979. He's recorded more than 20 studio albums, including 1 platinum and 2 gold albums. In his career, JB has also charted 19 songs on the Billboard Hot Country Songs, including the #1 single, Your Love Amazes Me from 1994, 6 additional hits that come all around to the one that grabbed my attention, She's Taken a Shine.
Since that Jessie's been coming to the diner, folks are saying that she never looked finer. You ought to hear them say she's taking a shine to him, becoming the woman that she's never been. And all of the guys are wishing they hadn't been so blind.
I'm sitting here with a big smile on my face because my producer is singing the song along with John Barry on the other side of the glass. JB, how you doing, brother?
Hey, man.
Did you hear all that?
I did, man. Way too much information.
So Lady B is sitting here singing along with you, and I'm just cracking up. I mean, I get the hair on my arms is standing up. I just want to finish this part here. It said, Country Weekly article said of John's, his greatest strength is his pure soulful tenor. He's one of the most remarkable voices in music, and I second and third that emotion. And in just a couple of weeks, he's going to be here in Chicago at Hey Nonny in Arlington Heights. I'm so thrilled to see you, Miss Robin and Big Mike.
Man, I can't wait. I don't know how many of your listeners have been to Hey Nonny, but if you haven't been, you're missing it. I don't care if you go see me or not, but you got to go to Hey Nonny and go to a show. It's a great, great little venue.
I always find it amazing, like the week before or the week after, you're packing them in standing room only at the Grand Ole Opry in Nashville, and the next week you're right here in our own backyard. And I always kind of kid you, kind of the country mouse coming up to see the city mouse. But more and more, and it's taken a while, but your music has really infiltrated so many levels and so many markets over the years. And I think a lot of it has to do with your ability. Obviously, all these years you've been in the business, and obviously the voice works for you, the songwriting, all these pieces, radio works for you. But the big thing, I think, that has made the greatest mark, you're on your 29th year of the Great Christmas Tour coming up.
And it has been such a blessing to be able to go out and do this tour for so many years. And, of course, my prayer every year is, Lord, let them hear what they need to hear.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
People always say, man, how do you keep it fresh all these years? And I'm like, prayer.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's so much fun, and we usually do around 20 cities every year, and we get up around your way a little bit and come pretty close to there. And then we'll go over on the other side of the lake in Michigan, and we pass through there on our way to Minnesota. We go up to Minnesota to play,
yeah,
and way up near Fargo. and a couple other places. But it's just so much fun and such a blessing. It's a mix of classic Christmas songs everybody's grown up hearing, along with some new things, and with a central view and focus on the faith aspect of Christmas.
You know, one of the things that's most interesting to me, I've been to quite a few of your concerts, and I watch you obviously do your thing, but I also watch the audience, and it is so interesting, JB. There's this connection that happens as the concert goes on, whether it's the Christmas concert or just one of your regular concerts like at Hey Nonny on the 9th of September, 7:30 p.m. Go to Hey Nonny website to get your tickets. I watch the audience start to lean in closer to you on the stage as you lean out to them. The music literally brings it into you. So I know the answers to these questions, but folks listening don't. So your big early influences in music, every time I hear, one of your favorites on the radio, I think this is a guy that influenced this guy who connected to this guy that JB heard on the radio, and now some of that comes back through in the way that you perform.
Oh, yeah. I mean, of course, when I was a kid growing up, format lines weren't nearly as tight as they are now. DJs just played music they loved, and, just great music. People call and request songs. They play them, and they don't do that a lot anymore. I know because I call and request my songs. They don't play them. I heard everything from the Shylights and the Stylistics to Neil Young and John Denver, John being my favorite, to the Allman Brothers and Skinner, just a huge variety of music. I mean, the music radio stations in the early 70s were like a variety show.
Yeah. So, I mean, you never knew what was going to come up next, and you kind of adapted to all that.
Yeah, I mean, the radio stations were playing the Shylights and Charlie Rich behind closed doors.
Yeah.
Same station.
Yeah. So when you, in this career that you got to go to johnberry.com, look up the About John page because there's so much in there. But one of the things that I think, for me personally, we've been friends a long time, has I stood back and watched off to the side, being a little witness to this. You've overcome so many health challenges in your life that I lost count, brother. And I think some of that stuff, some of that, if not all of that, for me, I'm speaking for myself here, comes through your voice and in your music. One of the last go-rounds you had was with throat cancer. I remember, you guys had the tour bus parked out at Woodfield before this even took place. It was the end of the year, and you just weren't feeling right, and we come to find out that, you had throat cancer. You went through all that. They didn't know if you'd be able to sing anymore. And then the next time I heard you sound as good, if not better than I did last time. How do you account for that?
God is good. I mean, ain't nothing I did, but there's these doctors with amazing abilities and amazing talent to be able to do what they were able to do for me. It has to be a gift from God, and I can't say any other thing that it could be. And actually, since I've seen you recently, I had carpal tunnel in both my hands, and I had carpal tunnel surgery 2 weeks ago Wednesday. Well, that's today. 2 weeks ago today.
Yeah.
And I did my first shows last weekend.
And no problem.
And no, hands are working, and a lot of that pain's gone away. Because still got some nerves, everything healing up, but it's just it's ongoing. Yeah, I agree with you. I've had more surgeries, and I'm most comfortable in a hospital gown. So I've had a lot of surgeries.
You're most comfortable in a hospital gown. As I mentioned before about seeing you in these different venues, whether it's the Christmas tour or whatever, and what do you think it is that brings people back to your music? I mean, Lady B singing the song here, that thing came out in 95, 96. She's singing it word for word with you. What is it that draws people to your music, even still so after so many years?
Well, I think I've been able to record songs that have a great melodies and great lyrics, and that do have a message that rings true to people's hearts. And not all my stuff is so deep that you got to wear waders. Some of it's just real light and fun, like She's Taking a Shine. Mm-hmm. But even as fun as that song is, it's got a lot of truth.
Mm-hmm.
The song's got a lot of truth, and that's why I recorded it. And I was so when I first heard it, I went, "Yeah, I'm in on that one," because tempos to me are a lot of times they're just ditties,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't record a lot of those, very few. Yeah. And because a lot you might not believe, if I did record them, you'd hear me sing it, you go, Sorry, John, I'm not believing you. I'm not buying it.
Yeah. You got to buy it. You got to believe in it. Yeah,
you got to believe it. So, and I of course, I've always had when I was first putting my record together with Capitol back in the early 90s, I lived in Athens, Georgia, and we'd travel back and forth from Nashville to Athens, back and forth. And our kids would travel with us, and they were anywhere from 2 years old until growing up, and all three of them traveling with us on the road. And if I couldn't listen to a song, if I was listening to these CDs or these cassette tapes or these demos, and these lyrics came up, I'm like, I'm not going to listen to that with my kids in the car.
Yeah.
They'll learn it faster than I will.
What is it real quick? I'm sorry to cut you off, but I just got to get this in because it popped in my head. Yeah. So I know that you, whether you're on the Opry stage or the State Fair stage or the Hey Nonny stage, it's you're bringing the same message to people in many different ways. And I always found it fascinating. The audience is sometimes the same, sometimes different. But music truly is the universal language. No matter what's going on in the world, what the headlines are doing, I've always felt when you open your mouth and start singing, you're sending lifelines out to people. And I think that it's interesting. I mean, the world goes up and down constantly and does what it does. But to me, maybe it's possible that the John Barry voice needs to be heard now more than it did even when I heard you first back in CMT back in the 90s.
Well, the world's getting more complicated. There's no doubt. Yeah. And we all. I think the one thing that I'm going to sound like a beauty pageant winner or contestant. One thing we need more than anything is peace.
Yes, sir.
And not just peace in the world, but peace in our lives.
Yes, sir.
And we don't need any more road rage.
No.
We don't need any more. We don't need any daggone. We don't need any more school shootings.
No, sir.
Please.
I know.
Come on.
Yeah.
We need peace, and that's one of the things I strive for is to convey that level of peace whenever I play, and hopefully share that with folks. Hopefully people feel it.
I am so looking forward to seeing you all on the 12th of September. You're going to be at Hey Nonny, 7:30 p.m. show. Tickets are available at heynonny.com or whatever the website is. Folks, I'm telling you what, I can't even express how good this is in concert. And John, I just want to thank you publicly for all the work that you do on behalf of that. People don't know the half of what you and Robin do when you're doing all these charity concerts and the rest of the stuff you've done. It's just really, really remarkable. I think you really epitomize what it means to be a troubadour and to bring peace and truth to people. So I appreciate that.
Well, I appreciate it a lot. It's going to be a lot of fun. My wife, to your listeners that don't know much about us, my wife, Robin, and I have been married for 37 years this past July, and she's been singing with me for almost that entire time. And when I married her, I didn't know she sang. So she didn't know she sang. And then Mike Steele, so we've been married 37 years. Mike Steele has been playing bass with me off and on since 1984. And he's a tremendous musician.
Yes, he is.
And the three of us singing is just something that happens.
It's just something that happens.
When the three of us sing together, it's really pretty cool. And we take songs that you've never heard, and hopefully you'll walk away where it just wraps up your heart. And you'll hear songs that you've known before, maybe by some other artists, because I love doing songs that I love, the covers of songs, and make them my own. And you'll hear them and hopefully be reminded of why I love them so much. So.
Well, just listen to you talk. We're all ready to go. Is it tomorrow night? No, we got to wait till the 12th of September. Maybe we get some Portillo's hot dogs in before the concert. We'll see.
Come on, yeah, man. We gotta do some dogs.
That's it.
No doubt about that.
All right, brother. Safe travels. My best to Miss Robin and Mike. I will see you guys soon. Love you.
Love you too, son.
All right, we'll take a short time out, grab some news, I think, here at the bottom half of the hour, and we'll be back with more after this.
Ready to step up your style? Do it in a Porsche. Own the road with power and performance. And find yours at the Porsche Exchange in Highland Park. Our tariff-free vehicles are available for immediate delivery, like the 2025 Porsche Cayenne. And right now, lease the 2025 Macan Electric for only $949 a month for 39 months. Don't miss out on the $7,500 EV tax credit and grab your electric Porsche today at the Porsche Exchange in Highland Park or PorscheExchange.com. $4,929 to its sign excludes tax, title, license, and doc fee. No security deposit required. Expires 9/2/25.
Are you 40 years old in great health and want life insurance coverage with no exam and instant coverage options? Big Lou can do that. Are you 50 to 60 with health issues and still want life insurance coverage with no exam needed? Big Lou can do that. Are you on meds for anxiety, sleep apnea, diabetes, or other health glitches and just want the best rate possible without a lot of hassles? Big Lou can do that. To find the most affordable term life coverage options for you, all you need to do is call Big Lou at 800-200-1966. Big Lou does term life insurance better than anyone else on the radio, and he may be able to get you $1 million to $4 million of term life coverage with no exam. For the best term life insurance deals in America, call Big Lou at 800-200-1966. 800-200-1966. Remember, Big Lou is like you. Once a week, he can do that too. Call 800-200-1966 or visit biglou.com.
I'm Jessica Ettinger, CNBC. Wall Street with a record-setting day today. Major averages all in the green at the close this afternoon. The Dow was up 147 points, 0.3%. Shares of Salesforce led the Dow higher all day. They were up 2.5% at the close. The S&P 500 index was up 15 points today. The NASDAQ up 45 points, 0.2%. Right at the close, NVIDIA shares slipped into the red. Investors will be combing through NVIDIA's quarterly results tonight, and that may impact trading tomorrow. Companies whose shares hit fresh all-time highs today include Royal Caribbean Cruise Line, Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley, General Dynamics, Ticketmaster parent Live Nation, RTX Raytheon, and Seagate. I'm Jessica Ettinger, CNBC.
Hear the CNBC Business Updates each weekday at 9:30, 12:30, and 4:30. Now, your WCPT 820 Chicago Weather Update.
I'm meteorologist Ray Miller from the Weatherology Weather Center. A chance of scattered showers and storms tonight with a low temperature of 63 and southwest winds at 5 to 10. Thursday, chance of thunderstorms with a high temperature of 75 and winds out of the northwest at 5 to 15 miles an hour. Friday, plenty of sunshine with a high temperature around 68 degrees. Saturday, sunshine with a high temperature of 71. Sunday, plenty of sun with a high around 74. That's the latest Chicago weather update. Right now, it's 76.
This is Chicago's Progressive Talk, 820 AM, WCPT Willow Springs, and online at WCPT820.com, where facts matter.
Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive. Filling in today for Joan, Chicago media personality, John St. Augustine.
Joan will be back in this seat tomorrow at this particular time. You can listen to, rate, and share the Joan Esposito full episodes and featured interview podcasts. They're both available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, TuneIn, iHeartRadio, YouTube, Amazon, and the Pony Express. The latest additions to Joan's, I couldn't help myself. The latest addition to Joan's featured interviews podcast are Illinois Congressman Sean Casten and Texas Democrat State Rep Ann Johnson. You can search for Joan Esposito or get the links on her show page by visiting heartlandsignal.com and clicking on her picture. Jennifer Weigel joins me on the blower. I'm assuming you're in the great state of Wisconsin?
Yes, I'm working the Pony Express as we speak.
I can't help myself. Sometimes it just happens. For those of you who don't know, the 4 people on the planet that don't know who Jennifer Weigel is, she's an Emmy Award-winning journalist, best-selling author, all-around great person, and makes the world a better place. And you have some stuff coming up, one of which I'm involved in, but you have something going at the Wayfarer Theater.
There's a few combo platters, on the heels of what your last guest, John Barry, so great to hear him talk about. We need more peace. We need more peace. And so I'm really excited to be part of a couple of things that are going to help put that out there, right? Everything is about broadcasting, and what are we going to broadcast? Mm-hmm. I left the news business because I got tired of everything stinks back to you in the studio, and now I get to work for a Wayfarer Theaters up in Highland Park. They're only bringing inspirational films. So they literally want the family, the community to come and leave feeling inspired, not terrified. I know that Halloween, everyone wants slasher films or whatever, but on September 12th, we've got Rainn Wilson. A lot of people know Dwight Schrute, The Office. Hello. He's in a movie called Code 3 that's about first responders. So on Friday, I was with my boss, the owner of the theater, Steve Sarowitz, literally going from first responders to first responders, firehouse to firehouse, on the ground with flyers in our hand. He's like, hi, I have a theater. We'd like to invite you for a discount. It's like,
wow.
Trick or treat. Hi, we'd like to give you some tickets to come see Code 3. So if anybody is free on September 12th, just make your way to wayfarertheaters.com, and that's Wayfarer, not the furniture,
Wayfarer.
but the theater. Yeah, Wayfarer. And then the other one, John, you get to join me for the All Souls Retreat up here in Fontana. We call it Funtana, Wisconsin. Okay. But it's our 8th annual. Amy O'Keefe and I started this 8 years ago to get people together to basically inspire. You've been a speaker in the past. You're back by popular demand to help.
I don't think it's popular demand. I think you couldn't find anybody else. So go get the big guy. He'll fill up an hour. That's what I think.
We had some extra hot dogs.
Oh, that's all. You know me so well. Did you hear that? My big get was that I was able to get the super dog before I did the show today.
I knew that was a priority for you, and as long as you got your cheddar fries and your MSG fix, you're good.
Yes. So tell folks about the weekend, All Souls.
November 7th, 8th, and 9th, and it's just speakers, and it's a whole feel-good, big old hug. Men and women, we have speakers who are of all, right? It's not just for chicks. Everyone's like, ooh, that's your wellness retreat, the woo-woo thing for ladies. No, we always have a combo platter, and allsoulsretreat.com is where you can learn more. Speakers like yourself. Joe McQuillan's going to be back. We have a gentleman named Nick Lodato, who's a medium from Long Island. We have healers who are local. Shruki Gokani, who's a brain specialist, to talk about handling your anxiety. How about that? Get rid of your stress. Everyone wants to get rid of stress. So we have tools. We give people tools and inspiration so that they can go along their way in a beautiful setting at the Abbey Resort. If you've ever been up there, and I know you have, John, because you've spoken there.
Yes.
It's so pretty. It's so pretty. What was your favorite part about being part of it?
Well, first let me just say, if you're thinking this is way too woo-woo for you, let me just tell you, Joe McQuillan is a cigar-smoking, crew-cut-wearing Buffalo Bills fan who does not mince words and drops an F-bomb with the best of them. I love the man. So that's the kind of stuff you're in for. But my best part of it is to see people that are, getting out of the circumstances they're in, taking time for themselves and educating themselves and giving themselves some sort of recognition and looking for something in life. I know one of the things that I asked people last time I was there, it's got to be 5-6 years, about, what are you doing here? And everybody says, I'm looking for something other than what I'm living right now. I mean, that's just, I can't say everybody is doing that, but if you're a seeker and you're looking to make your life better and figure out what's going on here, one of the things, I'm just letting the cat out of the bag a little bit, I'm going to start out with, is the talk I gave back in 2018, a TED talk I gave in Ontario called the human math, and how we think we have all this time to do all these things, and it turns out we don't. And so that's where it's going to start for me, and I remind people all the time that there are people who were here yesterday that they're not here today. And it can happen just like that. So everything spins for me off that one piece.
And we thought back 5 years ago when you were speaking that we were dealing with some tumultuous times. Well, now that is amped up times 1,000.
Yeah.
So what can you control? You can control how you feel in this moment. You can control where you put your intentions. One thing I've been saying a lot of lately, are you finding solutions or are you finding distractions? And we all know the difference. We all know the difference. So there's the distractions, and your device is good for that, and so are a lot of other things, even a lot of people, a lot of choices. You know the difference. And a solution, sometimes it might be a little more difficult, but it will absolutely take you to the next level. And so we want to give people solutions so they feel empowered instead of so scared, which is what the media is trying to do, is make you afraid to leave your house, and that's just no way to live. So find your people and come join us.
Fantastic. How do folks get involved, Ms. Weigel?
allsoulsretreat.com. All the
Can
info
you
is
sing
there.
it? Come on.
The allsoulsretreat.com.
That's what I'm looking for. I don't know why. Long day. Listen, I appreciate it so much. I can't wait to see you guys in just a couple of months, and we will talk soon. I appreciate you taking the time to join us and let us know, okay?
You're the best. Thanks for having me, John. No more singing, okay?
No more singing.
Bye.
Yeah, you don't want me to sing all that stuff. I'm going to jump right over because we are coming down to the last 15 minutes of this day for me, which is a very important day. And quite frankly, this might be the most important 15 minutes of the show for me. Let's just get Mandy on first, and I'll bring her on. We'll talk about it. Mandy, you there? Mandy Jankus? Mandy,
Yeah.
There you are.
Yeah, I'm here.
You're here. Real quick, this is someone I've been working with for a couple of years now. She's an amazing human being. I don't even call her a grief counselor. She's a grief prophet to me. I have learned so much about the grief process, and one of the things that she said early on in the Kindred and Brave project that she works on and the podcast that she does is that we're a grief illiterate society. And I actually moved you a couple times in the show to this particular spot because I need your help.
Yeah, I'm here for you.
I've lost, and using the word lost as a relative term, 4 very close people to me since March. That's a lot in a very short amount of time. And they're all men, and they all occupied a very specific space and place in my life. I lost a fellow that I worked with at Oprah Radio in March named John Keith, and that was a bit of a stunner. I talked to him on Tuesday, and on Thursday he was gone. We knew something was going on, but it was that sudden, and it had me staggered a little bit. And then on June 1st, I lost a man who I at a loss for words to even describe his place in my life, Bruce Hardwick, a.k.a. Mukdatha, the gray-striped wolf, or the black-striped wolf, I think is the correct term in Ojibwa. And this is a guy, you've heard me talk about it on this show today, about living in a motel for a year. This is the guy who he and his wife, Pat, put my family up for a year and didn't charge us a dime in rent. And he would always tell me after this, the best way you can pay me back is doing what you do. I mean, who says that, right? So Bruce passed away. I had a chance to be with him. You and I talked right after that. I had a chance to be with him the day before he passed, and it was a great gift to me. And then just last week, 2 in a row. Last Tuesday, my cousin, the Sarge, Rich Hoffman, passed away. He'd been battling Agent Orange. It almost said the S word. A lot of stuff from Vietnam that just curtailed his life at the end, and it was in difficulty. And, you know, we chat back and forth almost every day about the Bears and a bunch of other stuff. And next thing you know, that was it. So I just wanted to, and then 2 days later, Senior Chief Dickman, I just went to his funeral on Monday. It's been chock full of this. So I don't know, you know, we're running out of time here. I want to run this clip because I don't know, do we have time, Lady B, to run this? Or no? Can you fade it out about halfway through if I need to? All right. So, Mandy, I just want you, let's do about 4 or 5 minutes of this, okay? I say, go ahead and do this. Mandy, hang on, listen.
But it bothered me. It still bothered me about my corpsman. I don't care, every day, every night, I would think about this guy.
Yeah.
28 years later, after Vietnam, I couldn't take it anymore, and I sent his parents a letter. And I explained to him who I was, where I was with him, and that I was with him when he was killed.
Yeah.
And I figured I was embarrassed. I was embarrassed to do it.
Why?
I didn't want to open up any wounds.
For them or you?
For them. For me, I wanted to, for 28 years, I wanted to do this.
Yeah.
You know, so I figured, well, I got this monkey off my back, but I didn't want to hurt them.
Yeah.
And so I sent the letter off, and it was probably...
Rich, 28 years later?
28 years later. 28 years later.
That's a lot of years of going on between there.
And I mean, it bothered me every day for 28 years. Wow. And I think it was about a week and a half later, a letter came back from his mother and father. I could see the name and the place in Minnesota. Well, the letter sat here for about a week.
Didn't touch it.
I couldn't touch it. I could not look. I could hardly look at it, let alone touch it. And finally, I told Marie, my wife, Marie says, would you open it up?
Mm-hmm.
I says, read it. And if it's something I don't want to hear, just get rid of it for me, will you?
Mm-hmm.
Well, she opens it up, and she starts reading it, and she starts crying. And she said, you got to read this. Well, I read it, and they pretty much thanked me so much for contacting them that back then in the, in the 60s, it used to be a fact where the Marine Corps would send somebody to your home that was with the person who was killed to explain. Well, they couldn't afford it back then. They couldn't afford losing any combat engineers, so they just had 2 young lieutenants go to the door, said, I'm sorry, for the President of the United States, your son has been killed in action. Mm-hmm. They never knew what happened to him. Never knew what happened to him.
No details, no nothing.
No details, no nothing. So at the end of the letter, they asked me and Marie, my wife, if we would come up for a Memorial Day service.
Oh, boy.
Up to Minnesota that they have every year. And I told them I'm coming up. And that year, my wife and I, on Memorial Day, drove up there, met his mother and father, who were tremendous. And since I was pretty much one of the last people to see their son alive, his mother would not let go of me.
Oh, boy, Rich.
From the minute that she saw me, she held on to me. I mean, we were up there about 8 or 9 hours. And they thanked me so much for telling them, you know, what happened with their son, what a great, you know, corpsman he was and what he did for us. And it was tough. She would not let me go. You know, my wife says, you know, eventually we have to. I said, she won't let me go, Marie.
28 years of waiting.
Yeah. Wow. 28 years, and they thank me so much. And her father and mother both were World War II veterans.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, the father was a combat pilot.
Oh, wow.
In World War II, and the mother was a nurse.
Is that where he became a corpsman because of her?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. And like I said, the whole family, you know, just thanked me for, number one, writing the letter, coming up there, you know.
And all those years you waited.
All those years, I just, it just bothered me because I didn't want to open this up. I didn't want to say anything that I shouldn't. But like I said, I've got it off my back.
Yeah.
I felt good doing it. And like I said, for years after, until they both passed away, I always got cards and letters from them. Wow. So, and I should have been with them that day. You know, I should have been with them.
Yeah, but then you might not be here. We were not having this conversation.
The chances are I should have been killed with them.
Do you feel regret for that?
I do feel regret, and as strange as this sounds, I mean, it's like something out of like a Rod Serling movie.
Yeah.
Okay. When I was with EPA and I had to go to Washington, first time I went to the wall.
Yeah.
And I went to the wall because I wanted to see my corpsman.
Yeah.
It was tough. I mean, it was really emotional. I went to they have a little tent set up there, and I says, I'm looking for my corpsman. Here's his name. You know, they found him. I says, well, he's on this panel, this line. And he says, you know, the names are set up for the dates that they actually died. Okay, so he gave me wrote it down. Here's a pen and pencil if you wanted to write his name, you know, scrape his name. So I went over and I looked. Sure enough, I found his name sitting up there. And right below his name to the left was Richard Hoffman.
What?
Was Richard Hoffman. Now, I ran back over to the tent and I go, how could I be on the wall if I'm here? He goes, well, I'm just telling you, they don't make mistakes. Is your name? So he goes over there with me. He looks at it. It was Richard Hoffman. I think it had a different end, 2 ends to it.
Same date.
Killed the same day, same location. He was a corporal in the Marine Corps from Illinois.
Come on.
Wow. And I'm thinking, did God make a mistake here? Did God pick the wrong Hoffman that day, and maybe I should have been there? And that really bothered me.
Yeah.
You know, that really bothered me a lot, thinking, wow.
Well, the odds of that are nothing.
I said the odds on that happening are just, I mean, to be in the same area, the same day.
From Illinois.
Yeah, from Illinois, and a corporal in the Marine Corps. So that bothered me. In fact, I know when Nicole went to Washington a couple of years ago, she went there and looked at it too, and she made an etching, and she says, I can't believe your name's underneath there too. I said, well, that's not me because I'm here.
Yeah.
But I said like I says,
let me just say, this just popped in my head. I don't want to be too weird about this.
Yeah.
Do you ever feel like part of you died that day with him?
I think part of me should died. Like, number one, you know, when I got wounded in January '69, you know, I did leave some of my parts there.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm thinking, well, maybe that's what I should have done.
Yeah.
You know, to make up for not being with him that day. I mean, to be with this guy every day, all the time, and not being with him that one time. It's just, You know, it hurt. I still think about him every day.
Yeah.
You know, I still think about him every single day, and you know, you always wonder. It says, you know, did God pick the wrong Hoffman that day?
Yeah. Wow.
You know?
So the last question is this: is like I ask people this all the time, no matter who I'm interviewing, and I don't even know if there's no right answer here. But is there a big aha for you after all this? 50 years ago, Vietnam, you know, you went in this blonde-haired, bright-eyed kid who was going to, you know, serve his country, and you did that twice, and you paid for it on a lot of ways. You're still paying it for a lot of ways, dealing with PTSD and the pain in your body. You can't have surgeries anymore. You know, every time I call you, there's some other you're going on because it's stuff. It's just, you know, like compound interest of the worst kind. So you look back on all this, your experience with it, and being a Marine and serving the country, and how this has all been. Can you sort out any big ahas, any big lessons for yourself that have kind of come forth?
Well, I'll tell you, I do feel like I'm really lucky. I mean, I got a great wife, I got a son and a daughter, I got a grandson.
That's right.
You know? I got a grandson, Logan, now.
You were here to see that.
You know, I've been trying to write down memories of Vietnam and blah blah blah. You know, when he gets older, I want him to read his stuff and say, "Hey, Grandpa wasn't that much of a bum." You know, he may have looked like a bum and treated me like rough, but you know, this is what he did, and that's what I'm fortunate to be here. As you know, as sometimes as rough as you feel and terrible as you feel, as many times you got to run back and forth to the VA for stuff. You know, I'm here. You know, and I did the best I can, supported my family, took care of them the best I can. You know, I still got, you know, my relatives like you know, that I keep in touch with, and that means a lot.
So he passed a week ago, and I go back to that audio from 2023, and I just cherish it. Yeah. And I just wanted people to hear his voice. I wanted to know, you know, a little bit of who he was and what he went through as a veteran of the Vietnam War. This is a guy who's been a mainstay in my life since I was a kid. And he's 12 years older than me. There was nothing that he was not a part of. And on one hand, you know, it's bittersweet. I'm so heartbroken that he's gone, but so glad he was here. And I think that's the tightrope we walk whenever we have a loss.
Yeah, absolutely. And I could hear in his discussion about his friend, you know, he mentioned this regret. And well, the stages of grief, as you and I have talked about, are not really stages at all. They're descriptive, not prescriptive, but that feeling of regret is a sense of the grief that he felt about his loss.
Yeah. You know, it's unfair to bring you in this situation because we don't have much time, but I wanted you part of this. I have learned so much about this stuff that I never knew until you and I started working together. You gave me all this credit about being the producer and all that kind of stuff. But I got to tell you, when I really needed it, especially since March when these guys passed away, everything you said made sense then. And I wanted to thank you for that.
Yeah. Thank you, John. That means a lot.
All right. I'm going to have to cut you loose because it is a process, and it's one we'll discuss further on your podcast, the Kindred and Brave podcast. We can get on and talk about that. And I'll let people know where they can find that. But the last 20 seconds, I just got to say, you know, I came in here today to sit in for Joan and obviously hit the headlines and talk about stuff that's important and all that kind of stuff. But to me, all the headlines wash away when you get down to the lifelines of our lives. And when you run into something that's irreplaceable in your life and you lose that, everything goes back into perspective. Death is the equalizer in all things. So just keep your perspective in balance. As it seems like the world's being turned upside down, but I think if that's the case and you're spending too much outside time and not enough inside time, and that is the great lesson that we're all up against, because tomorrow is promised to no one. Patty's up next. She's going to take it, drive it home from here, and I appreciate you spending time with me this afternoon. Until next time, be well, safe travels, keep the faith.
Do Crohn's disease or ulcerative colitis symptoms keep coming back? Tremfya, guselkumab, may help, with rapid remission achieved at 12 weeks and lasting clinical remission at 1 year. Some even saw visible improvement of their intestinal lining at 12 weeks and 1 year. Tremfya is a prescription medicine used to treat adults with moderately to severely active Crohn's disease and adults with moderately to severely active ulcerative colitis, serious allergic reactions and increased risk of infections and liver problems may occur. Before treatment, your doctor should check you for infections and tuberculosis. Tell your doctor if you have an infection, flu-like symptoms, or if you need a vaccine. Healing is possible with Tremfya. Approximately 3 out of 10 patients were in endoscopic remission at 1 year, based on areas visualized on colonoscopy, which may not represent the deeper bowel layer or entire GI tract. Individual results may vary. Ask your doctor about Tremfya today. Call 1-800-526-7736 to learn more or visit tremfyaradio.com.
Are you 40 years old in great health and want life insurance coverage with no exam and instant coverage options? Big Lou can do that. Are you 50 to 60 with health issues and still want life insurance coverage with no exam needed? Big Lou can do that. Are you on meds for anxiety, sleep apnea, diabetes, or other health glitches and just want the best rate possible without a lot of hassles? Big Lou can do that. To find the most affordable term life coverage options for you, all you need to do is call Big Lou at 800-200-1966. Big Lou does term life insurance better than anyone else on the radio, and he may be able to get you $1 million to $4 million of term life coverage with no exam. For the best term life insurance deals in America, call Big Lou at 800-200-1966. 800-200-1966. Remember, Big Lou is like you. Once a week, he can do that too. Call 800-200-1966 or visit biglou.com.
You've still got it. Your immune system weakens as you age, making it hard to fight the flu, pneumococcal pneumonia, RSV, and COVID-19. Ask your doctor or pharmacist which vaccines you need. Sponsored by Pfizer.
AP News, I'm Ben Thomas. A deadly school shooting today, this time in Minneapolis. Hi Panjwani reports police there say 2 children and the shooter are dead.
The shooter opened fire with a rifle through the windows of a Catholic church and struck children celebrating Mass during the first week of school. He killed 2 children, ages 8 and 14, and wounded 17 before killing himself. Minneapolis Police Chief Brian O'Hara identified the shooter.
That coward has been identified as 23-year-old Robin Westman. No prior criminal history.
FBI Director Kash Patel said that the shooting is being investigated as an act of domestic terrorism and a hate crime targeting Catholics. Governor Tim Walz called the shooting unthinkable.
So I ask the rest of folks around the country who are watching, keep us in your thoughts and prayers, but also keep us in the thoughts for action. Keep us in the ideas that we can work together.
I'm Haya Panjwani.
The Trump administration is taking control of Washington's Union Station from Amtrak. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy says the president's been clear.
He wants Union Station to be beautiful again. He wants transit to be safe again, and he wants our nation's capital to be great again. And today is part of that.
Mayor Muriel Bowser says that would be an amazing initiative because the city can't afford it. A Ukrainian military official says Russian forces have broken into an 8th region of Ukraine, entering 2 villages in the eastern Dnipropetrovsk region. It's a major Ukrainian industrial center next to the Donetsk region. And Charles Deladesma reports Denmark's foreign minister summoned the U.S. ambassador today.
After the main national broadcaster reported on Wednesday that at least 3 people with connections to President Trump have been carrying out covert influence operations in Greenland, a huge semi-autonomous Danish territory in the Arctic. Greenland is coveted by Trump. Denmark and Greenland have said the island is not for sale and condemned reports of the U.S. gathering intelligence there. I'm Charles Deladesma.
This is AP News. Seth Sutel now with the AP Markets Report.
Stocks edged higher on Wall Street ahead of a closely watched earnings report from NVIDIA. The S&P 500 rose 0.2% Wednesday, beating the all-time high it set 2 weeks ago. The Dow Jones Industrial Average rose 147 points. It's about 0.3%. The Nasdaq Composite rose 0.2%.